All right. We are officially live for the first time, allegedly.
Ever.
We've done 20 videos now, which is, well, actually, we've recorded 30, but 20 have been released.
20.
No, even that's not true. We've recorded 40 videos, which we'll talk about more at the end. But technically, we've recorded 40, not counting the couple that we may or may not have had to re-record. Which
you know, the ones that we end and we were like, man, that was so good. We did so good. It was so much fun. And then, oh, it's still recording because of this guy right here.
Yeah, but we don't talk about that. So anyone who is watching or watches in the future, go try to figure out. There's a couple. I think there's like 2
there are people
videos.
in the future watching this?
Yeah, there's people in the future watching this. That's pretty exciting. But see if you can figure out. We make it a thing, of course, as you probably know if you've been watching us. We make it a thing that we do not talk about it beforehand. So we are genuinely surprised by each other's answers.
There's no script either.
And there's no script.
Other than what we ourselves research.
Yes. So, ooh, that's interesting. Seeing yourself live. Let me see if the audio is okay. 1 second. Cool.
Oh, no.
Me.
You're in the future looking into the past,
I know,
man.
it's weird. It's weird because the stream is behind. Okay, and I can hear you. Perfect. First try, people.
We are officially.
Yes. So if you were here and you're wondering what on earth is happening, what are these guys talking about? Well, we're going to recap the first season.
Get into that in a moment.
We're gonna answer some questions. We're gonna address some comments, which we always respond to comments, but we figured that we would also publicly address some of them because there were some awesome comments that you guys left, and you know, we thought it would be cool to talk about it here on a live stream. That way, more people could enjoy your deep, good, awesome thoughts because it's only fair.
In our pursuit of the truth.
Yes, because in theory, there is a correct Mount Rushmore for everything, and we are on a quest to find it. So, first thing we're going to do is to dive into some comments from the past. We're going in order of videos. So this first one is from the second episode, Pies, from Alex, saying, lol, I've never in my life seen someone actually put a pie in the window. I could see it in a time when there was no air conditioning, like if the kitchen was hot from cooking and you wanted to cool the room and pie. So I looked this up because when he said this, I'm like, you know what? Like, it's funny you say that because I've never seen it either. And it's one of those things that I was convinced was like something built into culture that was either never a real thing or hadn't been for a while. But it was a real thing.
I'm assuming that at some point that happened.
Yeah, so he's actually right in his questions here of like, I could see it in a time when there was no air conditioning. Like, yes, that is exactly when. Because the wind in the window would come and like cool it down faster. And it also would allow them to not have their kitchen like continue to heat up and stuff from like the resonant heat from the pie. So it sort of was a 2 wins at the same time. Good thinking, Alex.
Yeah, the only reference, like I said, if I remember right, was the granny in Looney Tunes. And I always in my head it was always like that's probably how they do it there in the United States.
Yep. Life is exactly like it is on TV. Always. TV
Especially
is never
cartoons.
accurate. Especially cartoons. Yes.
Yeah, like
Roadrunners.
You can have fires. You can have fires underwater, like on SpongeBob.
Yeah, and you can drop a ton on a coyote, and he will be fine for the next episode. Which is the
anvils
next day or whatever.
are easily available.
Yes.
For everybody to drop on anyone.
As is TNT.
Yeah. Yeah, the only company that doesn't go out of business all these years, Acme.
Yeah. Still in business. It's going strong through COVID.
Going
too.
strong. Yeah. Yeah.
So Kyle has this next one about the game system. So this is on the game system.
Oh, yeah, that was a long one, too.
Yeah. So the thing I really wanted to drill into with this that I think either we didn't address very well in the video or we did, and that was one of the many seconds that hit the cutting room floor, metaphorically. So the main point here is I'd be interested to know your thoughts on the Game Boy. Some might argue it's not a console, but the impact it had was huge. Everyone played a Game Boy, and I think the platform that paved the way for mobile games. I agree completely.
Yeah.
And I know you do too,
when I read that, I was like, yeah.
Yeah. So my thing was, and I think we did say this before, because we do make some clarifications before. We don't talk about it before, but we'll say things usually to be on the same page.
Yeah,
somewhat. Parameters, right? Like, so for example, for the Bible characters, we established beforehand that Jesus is not going to count, God's not going to count. Right? Like we established
that sounds horrible.
Those parameters. Well, okay, they're not going to count because it's otherwise the whole thing would be just like, first of all, it's meant to be Bible characters, Bible humans, men, women.
Well,
not God, right? So
you would have the Trinity then, and maybe you throw in
and
Moses
then throw one. Yeah, exactly. So that sort of like just makes it. So we sometimes we'll set parameters like that before, and one of the things we did say, I think beforehand, was not counting handheld. That will be a separate. That would be a separate Mount Rushmore. So, for clarification, I absolutely think it would have a place on the 4 if we counted it for this. For this video, we were mostly considering like non-handheld consoles. So I don't know which one I would take off the top of my head. I want to say I'd take off the N64 because I think the Atari has to stay. The Nintendo, original Nintendo needs to stay.
Yeah.
And I think the PS2 needs to stay. And N64 was both of our last ones, I believe. I think we agreed on all 4 on that one.
Yeah.
And I definitely think that the Game Boy would probably beat the N64 if we did include it. But it would be separate. So, good call out, Kyle.
Yeah.
All right, another one from Kyle. So this one is on the Star Wars characters. And
you know what I realized when I saw these comments?
Yeah.
But
go ahead.
Is I finally know who you're saying hello friend to when you say hello friend. It's Kyle Cunningham.
The only one?
He's there. I don't know. He's got the most comments there.
He might have the most comments so I did not take all the comments, which this was our first 20 videos. So full disclosure, at time of recording this, there is not a ton of comments, but I did not include all comments. I left off comments that were, that I don't know, I don't want to say didn't merit a follow-up, but like something that I didn't think would result in interesting conversation here. So I only picked comments that are like, oh, that is a good thing to address. I responded to all these comments because I try to respond to every single comment. But yes, so Kyle I think has a bunch here because he has a lot of good thoughts that he keeps giving us. So that's why he's here so much.
That's right.
Good job, Kyle. So this is one I've gone back and forth on constantly, and it's because it depends on how you shift your perspective. So my reasoning for Yoda, if you either A, haven't seen it, or B, forget, my thoughts were like, in universe, you wouldn't put Palpatine there in that he was evil, right? Like you don't put the worst U.S. president on the Mount Rushmore because he's so famous for being the worst.
Right.
But, and then for iconic, I feel in our world, Yoda is more iconic, right? Like, if you say the Emperor versus Yoda, if I were to guess, I don't know, but if I were to guess, especially with the fact that Baby Yoda is a thing now, which it's technically the child, it's not Baby Yoda, just so you know, but that's what it's referred to, right? So as far as people in the world, I think Yoda's much more recognizable.
Right, in the real world.
Yeah, so with movie stuff, right, we have to take the real world and then in their own universe are both relevant, right? So we did the same thing with superheroes and stuff. So finding that balance is a little difficult sometimes, but like, so Sidious is by far number one for villain, right? So the only reason I left him off was bad guy. But I feel like at that point it should have been just Jedi then, or good side, and we should have split out dark side, which we did include Anakin / Darth Vader, but that's kind of a it is the same person, but you can get away with that villain because of the Anakin side. And Darth Vader is the most iconic villain.
Yeah. So it is he's the main character, if anything.
Yes.
You don't realize that when it starts.
Yeah.
But as it progressed, and obviously, especially the sequels, but in the I mean,
Prequels.
For me, it took me a while to realize that the title, The Return of the Jedi, wasn't Luke as much as it was Anakin.
That's actually, as somebody who has watched every Star Wars film a ridiculously judge-worthy amount of times and has watched the Clone Wars twice and Rebels twice through the entire shows, and The Mandalorian, of course, you're blowing my mind.
Oh, really? Really?
Yeah, you're absolutely
you never thought
blowing
about
my mind.
that.
I and I usually think of stuff like that, and I had not. That's mind-blowing. Okay. I'm not sure if that's what it refers to, though, because it also could be the return, meaning like Luke coming back from his...
It could. However...
I feel like it's a double meaning, which is the best.
It could be. And I saw interviews with George Lucas, and I remember he addressed this, and I cannot remember exactly how he put it, but as I remember it right, he addressed it as him being... Because
that's
Luke,
awesome.
He was never really gone.
Yeah.
He had just started his journey as a Jedi. So Darth Vader, on the other hand, he came back.
Yeah.
So I don't know what you guys think.
Let us know in the comments what you think about this. All you Star Wars fans out there, I was going to say myself, but like us, because in case you haven't noticed, we love Star Wars. We could probably make this just the Mount Rushmore of everything Star Wars and be pretty happy for many years.
Yeah, just have like a whole season of Star Wars.
Oh yeah. You know what I realized I messed up on? When I realized May the 4th was here a couple of weeks ago, and I'm like, and that's not when we like, we could have done like a bunch of Star Wars ones for like May 4th month or what. It's blown opportunity. But hey, next movie or when Mandalorian is released, we can target for that.
Hey, on that side note, I don't know if you follow Mark Hamill on Instagram.
I don't follow anyone on Instagram because I don't have an Instagram.
Okay, well, I do. And he's been doing this hilarious thing the whole month of May. Every day he has May the 1st, May the 2nd, May. Let me just quickly go to Instagram and just read some of those because they are really funny. So he has declared basically the whole month of May Star Wars month, and it's just funny. Let's see, Hamill himself. Which one was the last one I saw? Let me see. Here we go. For example, the 9th, last week, he says, "May the 9th be a bittersweet episode, knowing it was the last time I would ever play Luke."
It hurts me so much.
Yeah. But he doesn't know that unless he's done.
It sounds from some things I've read that he's done, which I guess is semi-necessary because there's probably not going to be shows that overlap with, like, the only other Luke stories that I think we're going to get or should get, because quick warning, spoiler if you haven't seen 8 or 9, which I don't even feel I need to give at this point.
How dare you?
Luke dies at the end
Stop
of 8.
watching this right now.
Yeah. No, this isn't all about Star Wars. Don't worry, we're going to get off of this. But the only thing that makes sense to me is personally what I want is them to do Clone Wars style animation, because especially by the end it looks incredible.
Yeah, it was fun.
But Luke's peak, because I feel like we saw the rising action of Luke's life, if you will, and then he like solidified his place as the GOAT when at the end of 6, and then by the time we see him in 7, but 8 really, he's far past his peak and has given up. So like we didn't see peak the main guy of all of this, right? Like it seems silly, so I'm sure they'll address that at some point. But anyway, to address this question or this comment here, I agree that it's basically a tie. But at the same time, the weird thing is I feel so dirty leaving either of them off. But I don't know who else. I think Anakin and Luke have to be there. So maybe Obi-Wan. Maybe get rid of Obi-Wan to have Yoda and the Emperor. But I don't know. It's tough.
So that one, as we were discussing, I left it open. That's
the only one that we don't have everybody's picks locked in. So here's your chance.
Here's another, and I'm not. Maybe we can talk about it later. But here's another suggestion that I think could very well fit into it, because I know that I was really into this, and it has the iconic quality.
Yeah.
That and I don't know, you might not agree, but we don't agree all the time. I think that to consider would be stormtroopers.
As
to have a stormtrooper for the Mount Rushmore.
No way.
I don't know. You think about it.
It's not even a character. That's like
they are characters.
No, I mean, but you'd have to pick a single one.
I know, and that's why I said we might not agree. But again, they're the fantasy world and the real world.
Everyone, just kidding. Comment down below how wrong Carlo is about this.
I can picture it. I can picture it. Darth Vader.
Okay.
Luke. Who was the other one?
Okay, Darth Vader / Anakin.
Yeah.
Same person.
Yes. Luke.
Obi-Wan.
And
then
a
Yoda
stormtrooper.
or
a stormtrooper.
Okay, if you literally just go by like memorable face, if that was the only factor in a Mount Rushmore, like how recognizable, how iconic is the appearance, then I would throw Obi-Wan out, because he doesn't have that iconic of an appearance, right? Like,
yeah, I guess you're right.
You know what I mean? Like, as far as so if we right now, if
I put Obi-Wan and stormtroopers, I would say Obi-Wan should. Definitely. Even Yoda, I think, should definitely over a stormtrooper.
Well, overall, yeah, but just to entertain your thought for a second, like if it was just by appearance, like how iconic the appearance of something was, then I could maybe entertain Darth Vader as the obvious one, right? That mask. Number one. And we're still sticking with characters, so we can't have like Death Star or lightsaber on there.
Right.
So we got Darth Vader's helmet, face, whatever, appearance. The Emperor, I think, would need to be on there. That's pretty iconic hood and stuff. Yoda. And because there's no, like, Luke is not an iconic look per se. Like, it is because every character in Star Wars is iconic. But I could easily see Stormtrooper for number 4, if not Leia with the buns.
Yeah, the buns
would probably be
the
off
hair
the
buns.
top of my head. Yeah. So like episode 4 Leia.
That's interesting.
That is interesting. I'm All right, so for all those non-Star Wars people out there, we'll go to the next one.
Move on.
So Alex, this is for Pixar movies. I threw a jab at Cars 2. And so I want to clarify something. I actually had not seen Cars 2 when I made that jab. I just had heard, like, literally there's, like, nobody who defends that movie, and it's bad all across the board. So I actually took the liberty to assume that's true, but since then I felt dirty about it, and I'm like, okay, the only 2 Pixar movies I hadn't seen were 3. I finally went and watched. So Brave was one of them, and then Cars 2 and Cars 3. So now I can give my actual thoughts on Cars, which is, I actually think Cars 3 might be the best Cars. I was shocked with how good Cars 3 was.
You know what? I haven't seen Cars 3.
So, and I know some people don't watch Cars 3 because Cars 2 was horrible, and it is horrible. So, Pixar, did you just outsource to, like, some terrible company to make that movie? Because, I mean, all of your movies are, like, the second worst Pixar film is probably what? Like, The Good Dinosaur, which is basically...
Yes.
Or maybe Brave, I don't know. Like, Brave is actually a pretty decent princess movie. But it's a terrible Pixar movie, which tells you how good Pixar is, right? Because, like, I think that's bottom 4 Pixar movie, but I'd still take that over most Disney movies, like Disney princess movies or whatever.
I think that they should have moved it to Disney. It's just...
Yeah, it seems like a Disney film. Yeah, so anyway, so Cars. So Cars 2 is a total tonal mess. You've seen Cars 2, right?
Well, here's the thing. I have a thing.
You forget bad movies?
No. When it comes to Pixar, I don't watch sequels. I don't like the Pixar sequels.
Including Toy Story? Because Toy Story 2 and 3... Toy Story 3 is one of the greatest animated films of all time. There's my...
So here's the thing with Toy Story.
That's like a...
Here's the thing with Toy Story. The first one being the first full feature computer animated movie.
Yeah.
When the second one came out, I was very curious to see what they had done now, how they have improved, not just the characters, not just the story, but all the technical stuff. Because I really like, I'm one of those that like to watch the commentary.
Sure. Oh, I love that. I love that. I'm eating up the Mandalorian stuff. Have you watched that yet? Sorry to go back to Star Wars. I haven't had a chance because
I saw they had this. I think I started watching it.
It's so good. Dave Filoni. Every time Dave Filoni speaks, I just love him more.
I saw the first part where he's talking about how he started in Lucasfilm. Here we go back to Star Wars.
Yeah. Let's move back off of that. I didn't see if you had watched that, but anyway, so you watched it for the effects.
All that to say, I was very interested to see when I heard that they did the third one, I was like, really? Do we really need a third one?
Good. It's so good. It's so good. It's so good. It's Pixar. Toy Story 3 is easily top 5 Pixar film. Easily.
Yeah, it was good. But
it's absolutely better than the first one.
I don't think it even qualifies. I don't think it even qualifies as one of those that you didn't know you needed it until you watch it. I still think it's a good one. It
absolutely qualifies.
Now.
Yes.
And then the fourth one.
It also
has the fourth one. I just watched it out of duty, I guess, and because my kids wanted to see it too.
Sure.
It was like, okay, let's go watch it. But I was really done. By the second one, I was really done. I was like satisfied. Loved the inclusion of the new characters and how they ended up all together, and it's a happy family again. So
it makes me so sad though. I feel like I would die on the hill that Toy Story 3 is the best Toy Story. Like maybe 2, Definitely not 1, and definitely not 4. I do think 4 is the weakest. I think it's really good still, but I more or less agree with your sentiment on that one. That like
All right.
I think it wrapped up Woody's story, so I'm glad it happened. But it felt sort of like, you know how like the final season of a show is sometimes a half season, and it's really like all the main arc has been completed. It's almost like an afterword at the end of a novel where like people just, you know, it's sort of like, here's what happened after the main conflict was resolved. This person got married and is happily ever after, and this person got married, and this person finally got their college degree, or, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
It felt a little bit like that, which is like, you could have made a mini film about this. Again, I stand by it being very good, but I agree with you, it was unnecessary. Toy Story 3 I will die on the hill for, though. I love that film.
Well,
anyway.
that's fine, but here's the thing. Here's my philosophy on Pixar.
Yep.
They are so good. They are so creative, and they have done amazing things. And man, I would love to work with them.
For sure. I love to be on the story team.
So then I think, don't just do something new. You can do something new. You can do it, and you can do it so well. Amaze us.
I do agree with that. Like it seems wasteful.
It's a business, and people love those characters. I love those characters. I mean, for a while, I even had my very own Buzz Lightyear.
Yeah.
That I got at the thrift store.
Yeah. Yeah.
I couldn't resist, man.
And I will say, too, I agree with your Pixar sequels thing generally. So Finding Dory might as well have made it. It added nothing, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It was fine. It was a solid movie. Like, it's whatever. It was unnecessary. I think the thing that ticks me off, which I think is sort of what you're saying, is I don't mind Finding Dory, except that we had Finding Dory at the cost of something original from Pixar, which when Pixar comes out with something original, it's almost always gold. Like, first, the biggest doubter of Onward. Like, I remember watching the previews. I think it was during Star Wars, before Star Wars, when watching it in theaters. I saw the Onward trailer, and then the Soul one, I think it's called, or whatever the next Pixar one is.
Soul.
And I saw Soul, and I'm like, that is going to be one of the best.
Yeah.
That excites me. And I saw Onward, and I'm like, that's the one that Pixar's phoning in. And then when I watched Onward, it blew my mind. It was so good.
Yeah, it's a great story.
The ending, and we won't give anything away. Watch it it's free on Disney Plus. Go watch it. And watch it till the end, because it's
now Disney Plus is not free though. Just so you know.
Yes, Disney Plus is not free.
But the movie is free.
But watching us is. Drop a like if you enjoy this free content.
For now.
No, it will always be free to watch, because we want to deliver good content, not out for the dollar signs. But so I will say that I do agree with you on, like, generally Pixar doing sequels is at best like okay, but this could have been another amazing original that you're so good at. Yeah. So the only exceptions are, I stand by Toy Story 2 and Toy Story 3, because overall that made, in my opinion, by far the greatest animated trilogy in history. Not close. Don't even know who's second. Ice Age, maybe? I don't know, but like, I don't know. Whoever's second is far away. And then Cars. So back to Cars, which is the main thing here, is what I will say, and what I said to Alex after I finished watching 2 and 3, was how sad I was that 2 was basically a offshoot film. Like, it shouldn't be Cars 2. It should be like Cars, Mater's Adventures TV show or something, because it's just like a kid's movie about Mater, but it's also shockingly dark in weird places. Like, they torture a car to death in that movie. So it's this weird, it's this weird combo of like way too dark. And I like dark stuff when it's like for a reason and good or whatever, but like it was just unnecessarily dark mixed with trying too hard to be funny, and it wasn't really like good at anything. And it didn't like, the story was just like, but Cars 3 was incredible. So I'm like, wait a second, you could have had maybe the first and second greatest animated trilogy ever, Pixar, but you dropped a deuce when you made Cars 2. Because Cars 1 is very, very good, and Cars 3 is shockingly good. I mean, really good. 2's terrible, though.
I know that you know this, but creativity, it's a hard, tricky little thing. And you add to that the pressure of a studio and a business, then, you know, that makes it, because then they had planes. Who made planes, anyways?
Oh, I don't know.
Was that Disney? But it wasn't Pixar, was it?
I think it was a Pixar show on Disney Channel or something.
I thought it was a movie.
Let me look it up.
But I don't know. I don't know.
It's definitely not a Pixar movie.
But here we go.
It's a Disney movie. It's a Disney movie.
It's a Disney movie. Okay, so yeah, they're trying to cash on the success of Cars.
Wow, it's so obvious that they're doing that too. Even the logo is kind of similar.
Yeah. That's why I remember it was out there, and I got
Disney.
confused. Like, is this Pixar too? Because, like, why are they doing that?
Yeah.
So no, I haven't seen Incredibles 2.
That's probably, besides Toy Story and Cars 3, I would argue that's probably the second best sequel, but the bar's pretty low for sequels because Monsters University's meh, Finding Dory's meh.
Yeah.
That one's meh. The villain's terrible in Incredibles 2 is the worst part. The second the villain walked in the room, I'm like, that's the villain. I knew. and she, well, sorry, she, it's not spoilers, whatever. She is, because now that I said that, it will be extra obvious when she walks in the room. It was just one of those things. But her
sound anyway.
Like Syndrome is compelling, right? Because he has like his backstory makes sense. You sympathize with him to an extent. He's not wrong. So that's what makes him compelling, right? And this person has like really cool powers or abilities, right? Like Screenslaver, very cool. Basically enslaves people's minds by like showing them a green light on our screen or something like that. Very, very cool concept. But the execution was just like, really? This is like a Marvel quality villain. MCU. Yes, I just took a shot at the MCU's ability to make a good villain. Yes, Thanos is pretty good. Angry commenters. Okay, fine. They did one. Vulture's okay as well. But pretty much everybody else is terrible. Yeah, and out of like 27 movies, that is a terrible percentage. Terrible.
Well, yeah, I thought at some point just watching Syndrome, I even thought, why am I liking this guy? He's bad.
But he's not wrong about a lot of things, which is just, I love it. So next comment or series of comments, which are on the Bible characters one. So David Yoder says Abraham, Moses, and Paul are non-negotiable. So we both agreed on those three, I believe. So where we deviated was the last one. You put Peter, and I went with
David.
Yes, David. Which is funny that I forgot that because it's literally David's comment. So Moses was the one person that actually talked to God face to face. Okay, that's an interesting point out, right?
But so did the 12 disciples.
In a different sense, but yes. So
not in the way that Moses did.
Yeah, so this is interesting, and I wanted your thoughts since you are a teacher of children's Bible stuff.
Don't say that because the Bible says that teachers have it harder.
Well, you are literally partially employed by a church, so I feel pretty comfortable saying this. So Elijah.
Yeah, I just don't want you to
this one
remind
surprised me. Elijah, Peter, John, Samuel, and David would be fighting over the last part. So he did have my David in there. John was interesting because he said John without saying Peter, which Sam said John instead of Peter. So I thought that was interesting. Yeah. And then Samuel, Peter, and Elijah. I think I asked him what his thoughts were on that. I don't remember if he responded. I feel like not because I probably would have put it here, but my bad, David, if you did. So Elijah, Elijah and Samuel are very interesting to me because I just don't. How do you put Samuel over David? Like, is there an argument for
Yeah,
that?
I mean, it's you can have a lot of argument for that because Samuel being a prophet, Samuel anointing the first king of Israel.
Yeah, but who is that? Well, not David.
Saul,
Second one.
But
though.
then he went and anointed David. However, I think that's the extent of his story in the Bible.
Which
there's a little more when he talks about his kids also, and I think that's it. We don't hear a lot more about that. I think that David has a longer presence. To that, you add the fact that he wrote a lot of Psalms.
Yeah, which is arguably the most iconic book of the Bible.
Right.
I mean, if there's anything that if there's an atheist, right, and they're going to read a book of the Bible, is it not going, and not in like a curiosity way, but in a like I still would be willing to read this way? Would it not be either Psalms or Proverbs? I don't know.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
non-Christians out there, comment below if you were to read a book of the Bible, or if you just know a few, tell us what those are.
Yeah,
I'd be very curious to know.
And for a lot of people that I know, when they are like, I don't know where to go next, what to read next. Now I've been reading prophets, I've been reading New Testament, and then
Proverbs, yeah.
In the meantime,
Psalms.
So, well, when I decide, I'm gonna go to Psalms.
That's so true.
Right?
So true.
That's what you do.
So
hey,
true.
here's one that I was doing the other day. I totally recommend it to everybody. There's this guy that I discovered on YouTube. His name is Wes something, but what he's been doing lately, and he went from thousands of views to millions of views in like really quick. He grabbed Dr. Seuss books, set up an old school hip hop beat, and started rapping the Dr. Seuss books. And I thought that sounds like a lot of fun. Why didn't I think of that? Because the books are just there for you to rap to.
Yeah, and everybody loves Dr. Seuss. Yeah.
So I was giving a bath to my little one the other day, and you just sit there, well, because they play in the bathtub, and I thought, let me go to Psalms and let me find an old school hip hop beat, and I started rapping the Psalms to the beat. It's amazing, man. It's the most fun thing I've done in a while.
There's an idea for Pixpox. Shout out to your other channel, Pixpox. Yeah, it's good stuff.
At some point, I'm going to do something like that there, but it was a lot of fun. So just putting it out there. Try it, people. You might like it and find a new way to appreciate the Psalms.
There you go. So I wish David was here to give his reasoning, because I do know David
personally. You mean
personally.
David Yoder? Or
David Yoder.
David?
Yeah, David Yoder. Because he's very intelligent.
This is why I deserve to be in the Mount Rushmore, says David.
Yeah. But I know he's like, for the record, I assume anyone commenting is intelligent until they prove otherwise. But I know for a fact that David is very intelligent. I've had many fun, deep discussions with him through my college years and stuff. So I know for a fact that he's intelligent. So there must be a good reason for that. I just couldn't think of what the good one for Samuel was, because I felt like his main iconicness and his main claim to fame is simply via David, which if you put Samuel in there over David, you are effectively like, so that part didn't make sense to me. And maybe from a book writing standpoint, like, did he, how many, because he probably wrote 1st and 2nd Samuel, right? And then anything else?
Wait,
Samuel.
how do you say it again?
For
Samuel.
Samuel.
First
Yeah.
and Second Samuel.
Yeah. What else did he write?
Well,
I feel like there's one more, but 3 books is not
uh,
enough either for
Kings and
me.
Chronicles.
Okay.
Didn't he write those as well?
I don't know. If only we had Google available. What?
I don't know. And
the Book of Samuel, blah, 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 narrative. All right. Looks like he might have written Joshua, Judges, Samuel, and Kings. Okay, so that's a pretty decent list. I don't think that's enough to put him on. So the key here, right, is we're talking Bible characters. So you do have to take into account their importance in writing.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that's if
you
a
made
factor.
It in the Bible, I think it's pretty important.
Oh, okay.
Well, are you meaning as the amount?
For the Mount Rushmore? For the Mount Rushmore,
right.
one of the factors is going to be that how many books you wrote, how important you are to the actual present day existence of the Bible in its current state. That's going to be one factor. Another factor is going to be that the iconicness, which to me is okay, importance in the Bible as a character and as a writer, right? So like in theory, there could be somebody who wrote a bunch of books who isn't a character in them, right? So like we'll use Jesus as an example. Like we don't consider him because of, many reasons, but he would count as a character but not a writer, right? Because he didn't write any books. So in the same way, you could have the opposite, where somebody simply wrote and was not a character. And to me, Samuel, even with this pretty solid writing cred that apparently he has, he's barely a character. And then the iconic is the other big thing. So I think I weighed this a little bit more than you and Sam in this one, but it was very important to me that, if I talk to somebody who, again, like you have to go with, somebody who would know nothing about this. Who would they know? And I think if you live in the United States, you definitely know Abraham, you definitely know Moses, you definitely know David. If anything, David's 2 or 3 on that list. Again, not counting Jesus. And Paul would at least be above. Well, Peter might be highest, simply because of like Peter's associations, specifically in Catholicism.
Yeah, to the Catholic Church.
So I could see iconic Peter actually being higher than Paul, but certainly not John, I don't think. And Paul gets so much for writing cred and other things. Because I mean, if there's a single one that just wins in a landslide writer's cred, it's Paul, right? Like if there's one that you include just on writer's cred, it's that. Plus the fact that he's a pretty important character, just makes him non-negotiable. But okay, so follow up. Paul said, David, I like your thoughts on this. Elijah would be high up there because of how connected he was to the coming of Christ in his prophecies. So
right, but then you can argue that of other prophets also.
Yeah,
I mean John.
Yeah,
if you think of John, he described not only his second coming, but then even what was going to happen after that, with all the book of Revelations and in specific details how that whole thing was going to happen. So
that and like. It feels wrong to me to hand out too much credit over connection to Jesus, right? Because then the Mount Rushmore just becomes the 4 disciples that we deem to be closest to Jesus, right? Like,
right.
So if we're gonna argue like because he predicted Christ in his prophecies, like does that mean you also get mega credit for being like Jesus's best friend? So does John get credit? Like, I don't know. Like it starts to become a slippery slope
for taking care of his mom after he died.
Yeah. So again, I think I comment in response, but I don't think I've heard back. I am curious. So Paul and David, if you see this, comment below or on that video and let us know more of your thoughts, because I'm a little curious. I don't know. I just would like to know a little bit more on your thoughts, because again, I guess it depends. I interpreted this as like Paul is agreeing with David, and they both are saying like Elijah could be one of the four. Now, if they're just saying Elijah is like worth throwing the name in the ring, right? Because we usually end up discussing around 10 possibilities, right? Most Mount Rushmores have, some of them are pretty clear 4, but most of them are like,
Right. I mean, a top 10 is a good place to start.
Yeah. So if they're saying like, hey, Elijah's clearly on the top 10 to us and it's worth a shout out, then I totally get that. But like, it is so hard for me to comprehend how one could take off, because again, if we're saying Abraham, Moses, Paul, and David, or in your case, Peter, like, if you say Elijah deserves a spot, you are saying that one of those other ones needs to be off. So who are you taking off for Elijah? And it's very hard for me to imagine an argument for taking any of those 4 off in favor
again,
of Elijah or Samuel.
Because again, some of the things that we consider with the Mount Rushmore is how big they were there, how
in their time and now.
In their time now also, but their influence then, but also their influence now, like in a broader way across everything, basically. Because I mean, we're calling it the Mount Rushmore of everything. So and it, I guess, might as well be called out that yes, we are Christians, but in theory, this video, the answer should be the same even if we were both atheists instead of Christians, right? Because this is not, like, there's some Mount Rushmores we talk about things that aren't going to be things we're passionate about, right? Like, I'm pretty sure you weren't that passionate about dinosaurs, right? I love dinosaurs, but like, so the idea is that, we could do this for any religion, whether we practice that one or not, and there is an answer. So this was not like I guess what I'm saying is to me, like, you can say, oh, well, you're a Christian, so you see it a certain way. What my response would be, if you're thinking that, is if you think as a Christian you have a very different answer than what a non-Christian would say, I would argue that you're probably wrong. Probably. Not necessarily. That wouldn't be the Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, so
that's going against what the Mount Rushmore is.
Exactly. So, like, for example, we'll go back to Star Wars because the first one on my head. Like, you could say, like, you're a pretty crappy Star Wars fan at this point if you don't know very well who Ahsoka Tano is, right?
Yeah.
Like, she's like, and if you don't love Ahsoka, like, you probably just haven't watched Clone Wars or Rebels.
That's right.
Like, how do you not?
There's a guy.
I'd go so far as to say she's the greatest female character in all of Star Wars.
Just
hot take off the top of my head, but I feel like I would
Princess Leia.
Yeah, and I feel like Leia's overrated partially because being an OG gets you credit and stuff.
She's been in I mean, 6 movies.
Sure.
Out of all of them.
Sure. And again, I'm not hating on Leia here. I'm just saying that Ahsoka is like that level to a Star Wars nerd.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a big difference.
Yes.
Right. So it's same with comic books, right? If there's somebody out there that said, okay, well, I've read all the comics and I know that, like, this other Spider-Man villain showed up more than Green Goblin, and I have this, like,
well, good for you.
Yeah, like, that's good, but, like, if you're too deep in the niche, you're missing a part of the point. Because the idea of the Mount Rushmore of everything is you need to dive into the niche to see what the answer would be in the niche, and then outside of the niche. Because, like, iconic is so important, and it's not iconic to that person. So it's not. So for this Bible characters thing, right? It's not iconic to Christians. This is iconic to everybody.
It's not our favorites or what we would argue are the best because of this or that they did or didn't do.
Yeah. So
it's what, again, in a more broad sense, bring it. So we're gonna need to do a Mount Rushmore of Hindu deities.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah, I have been trying to think through what other ones we could tackle. And of course, we want to, however we address that, we want to be
respectful.
Respectful, exactly. For sure, because that's what we would want for, if somebody else is doing Mount Rushmore top 10s out there for Christianity. So we will be sensitive to that for sure. But to close this out, I guess my last challenge or word that I want to say on this is all that we say comes down to, if you talk to someone who has not read the Bible and you ask them to name 10 characters, and they can, how many of those people say Elijah? I don't know. And if it's not even top 10 for name recognition, you better be a really like compelling, important character and writer and everything else to make it on that list, right? Because again, it's going to be hard to find somebody who can't name Abraham, Moses, and David especially. Now those have an advantage, right? Because they're also like for Judaism, right? So and then Islam uses a lot of the Old Testament as well. So that's a little bit of a cheat, right? Because New Testament is very Christian centric, right? But there's more religions that come off of Old Testament, so there's a little advantage there. But anyway, not to spend too long on that. Next one, Kyle. This is going way longer than I thought. We're not even off of the comments, but this is fun, so it's good. Hopefully you guys are enjoying it. So what was this for? Okay, this was NBA. And
NBA. Oh, there's Kyle again.
Yep, Kyle again. Good thoughts as always. So the part I want to highlight is that second paragraph. I do think that Kobe would end up on mine, not just because of the recent tragedy. He was as iconic as MJ and LeBron, even if ultimately he's considered third best by most. I think that's a pretty solid analogy, or solid take so far. He dominated the league for most of his career, also came right out of high school like LeBron, also a good call-out, and his killer instinct was legendary like MJ's, for sure. I'm also a bit biased because I grew up in LA right when he first came into the league, so personally he had an impact on my interest in basketball. So we've talked about this, or I think I put this in a disclaimer at the beginning of that video, which was that we recorded it before his tragic passing, and we decided to keep it because we didn't want to be influenced by that. Yeah. Because in theory, that shouldn't affect it. And it's kind of hard to find. And we also delayed when it was released because it was supposed to be released like 2 weeks after his passing. And I thought that was too soon. And I personally really don't like it when it seems like people are like leeching off of tragedies. So I want to make sure we did not do that. Because I don't.
Because you're the wise one. I was all like, let's put it out right now.
Yeah. Or maybe I'm just the nicer one. That's
Funny
almost
enough,
definitely not true. Yeah.
The sensitive one.
Yeah. But,
how many of those, I was trying to think how many of those big NBA stars have passed away.
Almost none. I was thinking about that.
I have a hard time thinking.
I mean, even the real old school guys, like Bill Russell is still alive. I'm 90-something% sure, right? And he's like old school. Right. Wilt Chamberlain, pretty sure is still alive. Maybe not. Feel free to tell me in the comments if I'm wrong. But as far as NBA legends, I like the list of ones that are passed besides Kobe is like very short.
Very short.
And he's as recent as it comes without being a still playing player. Yeah. Right? Like he's only 6 years older than LeBron or something. I think he was like 42 or something. 42, LeBron's like 35. Yeah. So it is
it's just like it blows your mind. Here's something that blew my mind. A friend of mine told me about him that I didn't know. You probably knew this because you know more about sports than I did. He won an Oscar.
I feel like I had heard that before, but it's one of those things that I kind of assumed was, I don't know, like what for?
No, it's true. He won an Oscar for an animated short, best animated short of whatever year.
Was he
put it out there?
Director or?
He was the, I think, writer.
Wow.
Creator. I don't know because there were just two people in there. One was Kobe, and the other one was probably the director or whatever. But yeah, and if you get a chance to watch his little short, it's actually pretty amazing, and it's kind of like autobiography, and it has to do with basketball. Huh. But it's very, very well done, and the story is very, very compelling. And I mean, how many NBA champions?
I'm pretty sure none. Yeah.
It's just.
Well, I don't know about any NBA champions, but certainly NBA legends, because there are a lot of NBA champions that aren't even. I mean, they're good relative to humans as a whole, but they're not good, like bench players and stuff. Like they didn't exactly win the championship. Some of them didn't even see the court all season, but they still have a championship ring or whatever. Yeah. So, man, this is hard because we've talked about this, but some Mount Rushmores feel like, there's a few that clearly deserve it, and then you feel like you have to, because we have to pick 4, right? That's the nature of it. Mm-hmm. But it feels like whoever we pick for the 3rd and 4th one, or just the 4th one, is like lower enough from those top 3 that you feel like you don't even deserve this honor, but I have to pick a 4th. Mm-hmm. And then there are some where you are like, there are more than 4 that I feel slightly sick that I have to leave 1 off, or 2 off, or 3 off, or whatever.
Yeah.
And this is one of those for me that, like, I want to put Kobe on. I just don't know who I can take off. And you know what's funny? I went into it.
What do you have?
So I have. I think we had all the execs. No, we did not. Okay, so I had. No. We both agreed on Michael Jordan. We both agreed on.
Roger.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Okay.
We both agreed on LeBron, and then you went with Kobe, and I went with Magic. So Magic Johnson. So actually, when I was thinking about it, because I think what I had as my non-negotiables was MJ and LeBron. But when I thought about it more, and I don't know if this is, I might be crazy here, but I almost started to think, okay, if I have to take one off for Kobe, who is it? And I almost think that the answer is LeBron. And it feels weird to say that, but I feel like Kobe's more iconic outside of the sport.
Yes.
And my thing with LeBron is so being in the conversation as a GOAT doesn't put you there, right? Because this is not a 4 greatest of all time. This is the 4 on the Mount Rushmore. So even if you think LeBron is the greatest of all time and you will die on that hill, that doesn't necessarily mean that he's on the Mount Rushmore. Which I am not one of those people. I think in general, the whole GOAT thing is a sham outside of things like swimming, where it's an individual competition. So you can like equivocally see, like, Michael Phelps is literally this many more seconds faster than any other human to have ever done it. And he's done it this many times. Like, so that you can say Michael Phelps is the GOAT, but when it comes to like quarterbacks, it gets real weird real fast. Basketball is a little easier because there's only 5 people on the court and they're playing offense and defense, which is very different than football, where coaches is important. Schemes make a world of difference in players' performance. Like, there's so many weird factors that don't apply as much in basketball. Basketball's a little simpler. But anyway, so even if you say MJ, clear GOAT for yourself, you believe that he's the GOAT. Or sorry, not MJ, LeBron. That doesn't necessarily mean he's in the Mount Rushmore. And I feel like when it comes to iconic, LeBron's probably that fourth one. And the main reason he's on there for me is just the fact that the GOAT debate as of recently has been MJ versus LeBron. And that's, I mean, again, I do think he's clearly in that 5. But even though I thought he was my non-negotiable before, I would actually entertain taking LeBron off. Because I don't think that I can take any of the other ones off. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, I don't think can go anywhere.
No.
And a part of it too.
You're changing your Mount Rushmore?
Well, I mean, it's out there, it's official, right? But in theory, over time, as we think more about it, or as new stuff is, like for example, LeBron's career is not over, so he still has a chance to cement his place further. Because I did have LeBron originally, and I'm not taking him off. I'm just saying that if I have to take somebody off, I almost would entertain him. So to be clear, I'm not taking him off for Kobe. I'm not ready to make that call yet. I'm just thinking that if MJ's not going anywhere, right? That's the non-negotiable of non-negotiables.
Yeah.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, I mean, you could. And here's the other thing. It's weird because we live in the era of, and especially me being young, right? Like when I was 5 is like when MJ retired, right? So like, so for me, as far as iconic players in my lifetime, there's Kobe, Shaq, and, you know, all the other people in there, Tim Duncan, whatever. But as far as like transcendently well-known players, there's Kobe, Shaq, and sorry if I'm forgetting somebody that you think applies, and LeBron. So it's easy to overvalue one of those because of the time period, right? It's kind of like, which we're going to get to this, but some of the comments on the comic book heroes and stuff, I could see some people that were like, okay, I can tell recency bias, I think is getting in here, because it's the Mount Rushmore, right? It's not a power ranking. A power ranking is right now who's the top. Yeah. And that's very, very different than the Mount Rushmore.
The legacy.
Yes. And you can't just say, yeah, exactly. Recency bias is a real hard thing to fight, but you have to. You have any more thoughts on this MJ or the Kobe? Well, you had Kobe, so I guess you know, because you had yeah.
I mean, just like I said, the fact that I realized that he has won an Oscar is like he did it all. You know,
it's fair.
And it was sad. And just now that you said that about MJ retiring, I think that if he didn't retire, I would probably be more into basketball than. I think that the moment that he retired, I was like, okay, I'm done with NBA. I'm not interested in NBA anymore. Yeah. I think that if he kept going and I kept watching, I could have gotten hooked with the other teams and the other players a little more. But yeah, that was the day that NBA died for me.
You and a ton of people. I mean, MJ to basketball is Tiger Woods to golf. The sport itself would be not even close to what it is today without those single humans. So whether you like those two or not, like the reality is that if you like, if today in Columbus there's one professional golfer from history or present day that was going to be there, so people were showing up only to see that golfer, to this day, even though Tiger's been you know, he's finally come back, but for the most part he's had a lull for many years because of some of the issues or whatever. But like to this day, like I go to the tournament that is here in Columbus every year because I volunteer with my father-in-law and my wife and her whole family, and you know where Tiger is because there is a sea of people following him, and that was even in the years where he was not even close to winning. He was like 28. Doesn't matter. Like half of Columbus would show up if Tiger was coming to town. If any other singular golfer was coming to town, if they had a tenth of the amount of people as Tiger, I'd be shocked. So Tiger's a little more extreme, I think. Like to the point that if you told me that it's estimated golf would be worth, like the golf industry would be worth a fifth of what it is today, if you took Tiger Woods out, I would be like, that sounds about right to me. Whereas Michael's not quite that powerful, but it's close, to the point that I think to this day the most watched NBA finals is the 1998, his finals, which is ridiculous when you consider like the ratings of everything goes up over time because there's more people to watch, right? Like the Super Bowl generally year over year gets bigger, right? Like the idea that the 1998 Super Bowl would be the most watched in history is ridiculous, right? Like you'd laugh at that thought. Like that would never happen. But it did for the NBA. That's over 20 years ago now. And I think it's still king. Like it just shows you the power of MJ. But so I don't know how we got back to MJ, but yes, he is worlds above everybody else in the Mount Rushmore argument. GOAT is a different thing that we're not going to dive into, but I've shared my strong opinion about how GOAT in general is a silly endeavor that cannot be accomplished, and you are oversimplifying it and not thinking about it hard enough if you think there's a clear GOAT in pretty much anything except an individual sport. But soapbox over. So next one. So this is for DC villains. So we're towards the end now. Okay. David Yoder. Like the list, tend to lean more towards Joseph's picks. Heck yeah. Let's go, Yoder. Drop a like if you watch this for agreement. I would have also considered Sinestro and Penguin, but can't complain about the ones you guys picked. Looking forward to Marvel. And then Paul said, I feel that Poison Ivy could have gotten some consideration. I liked the Doomsday pick by Carlo. I also considered Brainiac and Darkseid. Zoom is interesting but not well known outside of avid comic book readers. And for clarity of anybody who didn't watch this, neither of us had Zoom on our list. We didn't even have Reverse Flash on our list, much less Zoom, which I would definitely say is lower than Reverse Flash. But we did talk about him. So for clarity, we didn't have him. That's not what he's saying. He's just talking about the different things we talked about. Avid comic book readers or the Flash TV show viewers. I agree completely with that part for sure. Sinestro is also pretty cool, but to the mainstream was only hinted at in the failure of a movie known as Green Lantern. And then he followed it up with Catwoman is an anti-hero, in my opinion. Boom! Let's go, Paul. So that was my argument against Catwoman. I don't think she counts because she's not a true villain. She's an anti-hero. Even on DC's website, she's labeled as like a anti-hero / hero.
Right, but here we go. Going back to the same type of argument we did for Bible characters. If you ask any, secular individual to name,
that doesn't really apply for this, but yes. Any
secular. I'm talking about secular from a comic.
Sure,
book type
I know it's just an odd term
to
use for comic books, but yes, I understand.
If you ask any
comic book atheists, comic book agnostics,
yeah.
Where's this analogy going? All right, go ahead, go on.
To name 5 DC or 10 DC heroes, I don't even say 5
villains.
It's probably going to be Catwoman is going to be there. She's perceived as a villain. Once you get to read the comics and see that she plays both sides, and you dive into her story, then you realize that she really isn't. But I mean, you see the Tim Burton movie. She's played as a villain, a type of villain.
Sure.
She's not the good girl.
Although rebuttal, she is very much not a villain in The Dark Knight Rises.
No, she and that was I was surprised that they portrayed her like that. That side of her character.
See, I feel like that's the more common one, though. I mean, even Gotham. I didn't watch much of the show, but from what I gathered, she was a sympathetic character. She was not she was a little girl, really, because Batman was also a little boy for that show.
Right.
I think they're like teenagers by the time it ended or whatever. But again, I don't watch it. But I'm trying to think of an analogy off the top of my head as to why I like if
I think even the animated series from the 90s. I mean, certainly the 60s, the campy Batman, Catwoman. There, she was the villain.
A villain, right?
Yeah, a villain.
Okay, so that's
so
different.
All that I'm saying is, I'm not saying that she's not the anti-hero, but she is perceived as a villain.
But see, so I don't know if I care what the perception is, because I don't think that matters if people are just ignorant about it and are wrong. I'm trying to think of an analogy for like a comparison in one of the other Mount Rushmores.
Well,
like,
but if you let's go with Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah.
And somebody stopped telling you he was a terrible person. He did this and this and this and that. I don't even know why they put him up there. And I was like, well, he also did a lot of good things too. And a lot of people know that he did great things for this country.
Okay,
so
with that, if
there's
anything,
a perception
that's an
part
argument against what you said, though, because now you're saying that you're consenting that people's perception is not as important as what the truth of it is, the wholeness of it.
No, I'm saying that he might have not been the best president, yet he is in the Mount Rushmore. I'm not saying that he wasn't. I'm saying that some people might argue that he wasn't one of the best presidents.
Sure. I mean, for the record, he's usually anywhere from 1 to 3 when people are polled. But yes, there are some select Lincoln haters.
But again, that's
sure.
Perception. Because if you ask, I've seen people being surveyed about it, and when they are asked what party did Abraham Lincoln belong to, and a lot of them that I've seen, and of course, they could just show you the ones that answer Democrat. But it seems to me that a lot of people don't know that he was a Republican.
Oh, yeah. He's the first Republican president, actually. Yeah, I mean, it's odd when people don't know that. It's odd to me. Like, you don't know who it's a pretty big deal that there's only 2 parties that still exist today that we have, right? Like, it used to be like the Whigs and the whatever. And the first president of either Democrat or Republican, the only real 2 parties that we have now. And when I say real, I mean like real in the sense of like, you know, no matter where you stand politically, you know, begrudgingly a Democrat or Republican is going to win, right? If you're just jumping in on the live stream, don't worry, we're not really talking politics. We're just talking Mount Rushmore and Abe Lincoln. But it seems odd to me that anybody wouldn't know, like, Abe's the first Republican. I don't know. It's just, to me, that's a very obvious thing that most people know.
I've seen a couple of videos out there floating that people don't realize that he was a Republican.
It wouldn't surprise me, but I don't really want to talk about why that wouldn't surprise me because we're not going to get political. So, so I guess my argument would be I don't care what people's perception is if they're wrong. And, you know, if somebody said to me like, okay, Darth Vader is on the list of, I don't know, Star Wars heroes. Mm-hmm. And they tried to make the argument, well, he's a hero because at the end of the day, he's the one that turns on the Emperor.
Yeah.
Yes, but that was Anakin Skywalker. The hero is Anakin Skywalker, who becomes the villain, Darth Vader. And if you get meta about it, it's like the good in him is Anakin Skywalker always, and the bad in him is Darth Vader always. He's Darth Vader before he puts the mask on, when he's evil. So it's about evil versus good. Darth Vader is his evil title. So that person will be objectively wrong that Darth Vader could be considered a hero. But they might have that opinion. I could even see somebody having that opinion and thinking that it's a deep opinion. They're wrong, though. So, like, similarly, I don't know. So first you said that you thought that people would put Catwoman in their 5 if they had to name 5 DC villains. I'm not sure I disagree, but what the caveat I would add is I'm pretty sure most people would cock their head a little bit and be like, does Catwoman count? Because I'm pretty sure she's pretty well known as lover of Batman, like that she has a thing with Batman. Now, it's always kind of in a weird place, you know, in one storyline, she's pregnant with his kid. In another storyline, they're not friends, and you know, whatever. But I don't know.
But it's what,
either way, me, that seed of doubt is enough that I think that... Okay, honestly, even if we do count her, I'm not sure she makes my 4. She makes my 4 if we're literally only going off of iconic, but it's one of many factors. And if it was just iconic and we counted her, then I would agree with her on the 4, I think. Because she's probably more iconic over time than some of the ones on the list. Like Ra's al Ghul, for example. I had Ra's al Ghul. Yeah. And as far as iconic, instantly recognizable, she's certainly higher than him. But that's a factor, not the factor. Right. I guess we would discuss this other stuff, but we're already going crazy for time. But quickly, considered Brainiac and Darkseid, and Sinestro and Penguin, David mentioned. Yeah, I mean, Sinestro for me is a little too...
Yeah, it's obscure.
It's a little... I hate calling it obscure. Yeah, but it is the main villain of, spoiler alert, a hero that barely didn't make the Mount Rushmore of heroes. So, which doesn't necessarily mean anything, but it's one of those that, like, I feel like I'd put several Batman villains, maybe even all 4 Batman villains before I'd get to Sinestro, and I certainly would go...
He's a superhero.
So here's a question for you. If you had to put Reverse Flash, so Flashes, because we have a Superman, Batman, we don't have Wonder Woman. We don't have any Wonder Woman one either. So Wonder Woman and Flash...
I have Wonder Woman.
No. Sorry. For villains... we didn't have any villains that belonged to the Rogues Gallery of Wonder Woman or Flash. But we both agreed those 2 were on the Mount Rushmore of heroes. Which, again, this doesn't necessarily... That doesn't matter. Because it's a totally separate thing. But worth thinking through. So if you had to choose... And then Green Lantern was the one that we kind of felt bad about leaving off. And then Aquaman as well. So if you had to choose Reverse Flash to be in it, or... I'll throw Ares in there, I guess, from Wonder Woman. He's the main one for Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
Right? Mantis from... and then Sinestro's the main one for Green Lantern, right? So if you had to pick one of those, which one are you putting in there?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Okay, I was narrowing it down
to me, but I don't...
all right, again. So Reverse Flash...
Sinestro, Ares, and Mantis. So basically, the main villains, the jokers of each hero that we considered for the Mount Rushmore. See, I think it's clearly Reverse Flash. If I had to pick one, it's Reverse
really?
Flash. Oh yeah.
I was thinking it was between Manta and Sinestro.
I mean, so again, this is where
because
it gets
Flash,
weird.
I think that there is an older villain that he has, and that's what's his name?
Professor Zoom. Reverse Flash is the original though.
The Freeze.
Although it gets real weird.
the freeze guy. It's not
Captain Cold.
Captain Cold.
Yeah, but he's not. Reverse Flash is Reverse Flash is the Lex Luthor, is the Green Goblin, is the Joker.
Right. Okay.
So we're just taking those, right? Like the if there was only one villain, if a movie knew that it could only make one movie, and it had to choose, so it would choose the best villain, which one would it choose? And the clear, you could argue for Spider-Man, maybe you could go Doc Ock, but anyway, that's irrelevant because we're not talking about Marvel right now. But I don't know.
I don't think it's Reverse Flash. I don't think it's Reverse Flash.
So what were your two? Manta or is
it
Manta?
Manta.
See, I don't even know his name. That's how.
Or a Manta Ray.
Yeah, it makes sense. And then
he was one of my favorites growing up.
Okay, so you don't think Ares?
No.
See, that's interesting. How
because Wonder Woman has another two ladies.
The cheetah person is the cheetah person one of them.
The cheetah woman. I can't remember her name. And then there's this other lady that she gets super huge.
Oh, yeah, I saw that one when doing research. Yeah, so it is interesting to me though, like because we both agreed non-negotiable, like Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, and the fact that no Wonder Woman villain is even remotely in the conversation.
Yeah,
I don't even know if there were 10 presidents of the Mount Rushmore. I don't know that Wonder Woman has any villain on there still. I mean, I'm probably just putting like 6 Batman ones, and then the rest of the Mount Rushmore I put her. I don't know, something like that.
Why is that, man? That is just so interesting.
It shows that like how popular the hero is doesn't necessarily go with the villains, but you would think that they elevate each other, right? Because normally they do.
Don't they say the hero is just as big as the villain?
Yeah, I mean, the villain, and in my world, the villain's even more important because I love villains. But you know, to your average person, it's probably it's 50-50. It's both.
Villains do need love, man.
They do, and if they were loved by their parents a little more, maybe they wouldn't be so bad. So
treat your children right. Teach them.
Yeah, I think this is the last comment. If not, there's one more. So Paul, definitely agree with the choice of Loki. Not sure about Doctor Doom. My only exposure to him is through the Fantastic Four movies. I would maybe have put Dr. Octopus instead, or maybe Venom. So interesting thing there. So we both agreed on Doctor Doom. Where we disagreed was you had Venom and I had Loki. So this is interesting, adding to the triangle, if you will, where he's agreeing with my Loki and disagreeing with what one of the three we both did agree on. He's disagreeing with and saying that he would either put yours in there, Venom, or Doc Ock, which I think is one that we talked about repeatedly as like this could almost.
And this is on the Marvel villains, right?
This is so this is Marvel villains.
Yeah.
What's interesting about this is, first of all, I want to go out there and say I stand by Doctor Doom, and he's absolutely on there. Would you agree with that? Like, just
yeah.
I
agree.
So, if anything, I would take my own Loki off for your Venom. So, like, I kind of agree with him, and that like Venom and Doc Ock are great choices.
Yeah,
but it's not Doctor Doom that I'm taking off for those two.
No, because Doctor Doom. Again, you have to go to the comics, and when the movies came out, I actually didn't even see the newest Fantastic Four because he had very bad reviews, anyways.
Yeah, and
I don't think they've done a very good job with that franchise. But I remember, I remember thinking, man, they didn't do good with Doctor Doom. He's such a he's got that emperor type of quality in him. He's just crazy villain guy,
and brilliant like the emperor.
Yes, very smart. And then in the most recent one, I saw it and it's like, why are they doing that? Because they turn him into like a Terminator type of
they do
thing,
that with him every time for the movies.
Oh, man.
So
and I felt like no, they need to do, because it's such a great villain.
so interesting. So first of all, first thing I want to address is this is now the second comment in a row that has used movies in their line of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to remind people, if you forget, that movies are not in question here. This is not the DC movies.
Yeah.
This is not the MCU. This is
the
well,
character.
obviously, he's not even in the MCU, but like this
we
is
take them in account, but it goes beyond just that.
Yes. So for example, something that we said in the Marvel Heroes was, if it was an MCU Heroes, the non-negotiable is no longer Spider-Man. The non-negotiable becomes Iron Man.
Oh yeah.
For the MCU, but that's not what we're talking about here. Now, Iron Man still made both of our Mount Rushmore, so it didn't matter. But like, it's important to note that there can be a huge difference between your perception if your perception is only movies, and again, to not go back on my own. Yes, it is important to be iconic outside of, culture, which means that even people who just watch the movies should know of these. But I think Paul would be in the minority for. So I guess what I'm saying is Doctor Doom is something that I'm pretty sure anybody in comic books would agree with us. Like, absolutely Doctor Doom. They might even say non-negotiable. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
But also if you go to the polls and stuff for just popular, what people say and think, he's up there to the point that there is a very huge line of thought, because people are asking, all right, MCU did Thanos. Who's the next big baddie? The overarching bad guy. Who is that? And one of the main thoughts is that's going to be Doctor Doom. Like, there's been talks about it. Like, and there's a reason for that. You know what I mean? Like,
you know what's funny?
There's a reason for that. Like, he's important, and he's the villain that everybody's waiting, because we have a good rendition of pretty much all the other really iconic Marvel villains, right? Like, maybe not all of them. You could argue Venom, no, because Spider-Man 3 wasn't very good, and his portrayal certainly wasn't very good in Spider-Man.
Oh, but the
3.
newer
one, he has his own movie, though.
Yes.
And then
it didn't do marvelous, but it was good.
And Loki, if anything, went from 5 or 6 to into the Mount Rushmore because of the MCU. So he certainly has been shown love, right? Thanos has risen a lot due to the MCU. Red Skull was shown some love by the MCU for sure. I mean, he wasn't executed very well, but to the average viewer, they didn't mind him. I thought he was boring and but whatever. Green Goblin, most people, myself included, really enjoyed his portrayal in the original Spider-Man,
the original Spider-Man.
Doc Ock, widely, besides The Dark Knight, widely considered the second greatest superhero film of all time is Spider-Man 2, which is Doc Ock. And part of that praise is because of how well Doc Ock was done. So a lot of these other villains have seen the love, but I think Doctor Doom has a disadvantage from, like, he just hasn't been shown on the big screen in a way that he deserves.
In a way, yes. Now, when you bring up who's going to be the next big baddie, and thinking, like myself, thinking about that, and what I heard, a lot of them agree with this, but this is what I think it's interesting. I think the next one should be Galactus. However, I don't.
Doesn't that feel like
have
Thanos
him as
part
the
2,
Mount
though?
Rushmore?
Yeah.
I think that he would be if they're going to think of something that is huge and big as Thanos was. I think Galactus could fit in that category and do that role pretty well. Especially if they write him in a way like they did with Thanos.
Yeah. So I know you've heard this, but for the listeners, I have a huge pet peeve, and that is the need.
You're just one?
Well, this is one of them. The need, or the perceived need, of people who write books or movies or whatever, that the power needs to keep going up.
Yeah.
Like last movie,
I know.
we saved a state, So we need to save a country this time. So we need to save the world. World's not enough now. It's the universe. Like, stop it. It doesn't have to keep getting bigger. Like, what is compelling and what makes something an interesting fight is if anything, the bigger, the more it just becomes, because the second that the heroes are trying to save the world, like, well, they're not going to fail at that. They might fail at saving that city, or like, take Spider-Man, might fail at saving his love, Gwen Stacy, right? But once the world's at stake, you know how it's going to end, right? Like, it's never going to be like, you can't destroy the world. Then the comic book is over. Or the movie's over, or the books are out, whatever. Which
is why Endgame is such a good movie.
Sure. And so let's take, for example, Star Wars. So in 7, 8, and 9, it's heavily implied that Kylo never reaches the heights of Darth Vader. And we know that Luke is one of the few higher than Darth Vader, and then obviously Sidious is higher than Darth Vader. But the two main characters and main battle, if you will, was Kylo and Rey. Now, regardless of what you think of the movies, like, their battles and their, them at least, and their battle was
their struggle in their fight,
and was well done, right? Like, nobody cares that, like, but Darth Vader's more powerful than Kylo Ren, and Luke Skywalker in his prime's more powerful than Rey, even if Rey sometimes seems more powerful just because the effects are better now, so they, have the ability to show more impressive things. But Luke in the comics brings down, like, a whole Star Destroyer or something ridiculous. So calm down, Luke's still the GOAT. But nobody cares, right? Like, it doesn't matter. It's, as long as you, relative to your villain, or a great example is the Joker, right? The Joker has never, ever been a physical match for Batman. He's not. I mean, he can hold his own physically, but that's not what makes him great. It's that everything he is a perfect answer counter to Batman.
Yeah.
Power doesn't matter. Stop worrying about power. Like, the Joker is the greatest example.
He doesn't have any powers
anyway. No powers, and he, in a physical fight, would lose to a lot of Batman's villains, and yet, like, he is, of all consensus GOATs, like, when it comes to comic book villains, it's Joker.
All across.
I mean, like, if you asked 100 people, all 100 are saying the Joker, right? Like, even the hipster who's like, I want to be different, is like, well, I mean, the Joker, though. Like, I can't. I'll be different after that.
Like, you can't argue.
Yeah. So again, we're taking too long for this one, but yeah. All right. So
we ended up back at Star Wars too.
And we ended up back at Star Wars. Yeah. All roads lead to Star Wars. That's the phrase, right?
I guess it is for this.
So here's a question, because you said this in a video, and I want to address it just so the viewers know that we're not crazy. Can you really see the Great Wall of China from space? No, that is a myth. You cannot. So I just wanted to address that real fast, that we're aware that you can't really see the Great Wall of China from space.
Who said that?
You said that.
I said that we can see the...
Yes, you use that as part of your argument. Use that as part of your argument for why it needs to be on there over my Taj Mahal, which I'm gonna address in a second. So picks we feel best about.
So then it probably didn't. All right, let me address that really quick.
Yep.
I didn't meant it as it is true or not true. I just meant it as
like it's a
use the Great Wall as an example of something you can see from outer space, whether it is true or not.
Sure.
It's besides the point.
Yes.
You don't say you can see the Taj Mahal from space.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I meant.
Sure. So for iconic and well known and stuff, yeah. Which I figured that was true, but yeah. Regardless, I wanted to clarify to all the viewers out there. We know. We know you can't see it from space. So picks we feel best about.
But can you really not?
Yeah, you can't. I mean, when you think about it, it makes sense how
We're just
ridiculous that is.
How many people are we trusting for that fact?
Very few. But
and
if
just
you,
a few
right.
photos.
So how
photos.
wide is How wide is it?
Not super wide.
20
anyway.
feet across?
Like, whatever
so
it
if
is,
you think about it that way, there's no way that there's...
Yeah.
I mean, it could be the brightest light on Earth. And if
I
it's
still-
20 feet wide, you're not seeing that from space.
I still think until I go up there and then confirm it myself.
I love how you went from, hey guys, I didn't really think that, to like digging your heels in, like, yes, it could be true.
Still, I want to know for sure.
Yeah.
Because all I'm doing is trusting the information that it's out there, which we do for many things anyways, but I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, I tend to be a contrarian every once in a while, which can lead to flip-flops.
Yeah. I mean, I could be that way. I like to see it, though, as like, I want to always be the person who's like, okay, that thing that you take for granted, let's think about it, though, because there's a lot of things that people take for granted that's untrue. And if you've ever looked at those, like, you know, here are like 8 or 80 different brands that you thought were spelled this way. You've looked at, like, you know, Oreos or something. Oreos, everybody knows how to spell, but something like that, right? Like you've seen this box of cereal a million times in your life, and yet you are convinced you know how to spell it, and you're wrong. That's not how it's spelled. Or like Bernstein Bears, to this day, I know I've seen it a million times. I know that whatever I have in my head is wrong. So there's like so many examples of like conventional knowledge, like, well, everybody thinks this, like, that doesn't make it
that doesn't prove anything.
That just means that, oh, shocker, humans are good at groupthink.
All right.
Like, it's almost like that's why the term exists. Shocker.
So to your argument about the wall of China,
oh boy.
First of all, I was addressing the comment. It's not that I believe or not believe that you can or cannot see it. I was just saying that I'm aware that the common consensus is that no, you cannot see it. I know, and I recognize that as a fact.
Sure.
I wasn't saying that. What I was saying is that you use the Great Wall of China as opposed to the Taj Mahal. On the other hand, until I go up there and confirm it myself.
That's fair. All right. I'll allow it. Not that you're asking my permission. So the picks we feel best about. For me, the two that really stand out, head above heels, like lock it in, put it on my grave because I stand by it and I don't think it will ever change within reason. Like, you know, in 200 years, that's a different story. But
right.
DC heroes, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, and Flash. It was one of a few, we're going to talk about some numbers after, but it was one of a few that we both agreed on, all four. And that's not the only reason, though. I just feel that, like, it's the only one that there's some struggle for Flash, but for the most part, when I pick Flash, it feels obvious. Like, you can rationalize and be like, well, maybe Aquaman, well, maybe... who's the other person that would Aquaman, and we talked to Green Lantern. So you could rationalize those two in, but as soon as you see Flash is on the outside and one of those is on the inside, you're like, no, hold on. So that is one, and then sitcoms actually for me. I feel very lock in for I Love Lucy, Seinfeld, Friends, and The Office. That's another one that I would lock in. Other ones that are pretty solid for me, I won't die on the hill for, but I'm pretty locked in as Pixar films, Toy Story, Finding Nemo, Up, The Incredibles, video game consoles, again, assuming that we're not counting handheld, Atari, NES, PlayStation 2, N64, Marvel Heroes, which we're going to address in a second. I stand by my Marvel Heroes very strongly.
Okay.
And then Netflix originals, which is another one that we agreed on all four.
Okay.
So that's kind of a long list, but if I had to pick one, DC Heroes, probably.
In my case, all of them. I mean, come on.
I'm the best. I've never made mistakes.
Oh, can you see me? There we go.
I can see you again, yes.
Yeah. I think I'm running out of batteries here.
Oh, well, you better get that charger.
um, so I don't know, Star Wars, and I know that at that time I
Even though
didn't
you
pick
didn't
my
even
third
have a
one.
fourth.
No, but now I guess um,
Wait, have you even said who you're locking in? Yoda, Palpatine, or Leia?
I well we discussed that.
I don't
I'm
remember
gonna
what
have
you
to
said
go
though.
with uh, no, I didn't say it.
Oh,
But I think I'm gonna have to go with Yoda.
oh,
It's
okay. So that makes us 4 for 4 on that one then.
yeah, it doesn't count as a 444 because it's out of time, but it's
Well,
extemporaneous.
I that's interesting because I don't know if it counts or not because you technically didn't make a call at the time. I would argue if you locked in another one and then changed your mind, then it doesn't count as 4 for 4. But
Okay.
since it's been a question mark until
Uh-huh.
today,
Okay.
we could
All right.
retroactively change the
I'll let
stats.
you.
Although I already have the stats compiled with us assuming to have not agreed,
Right.
so we're good on that. All
Yeah, I
right,
think that
Star
those are
Wars.
pretty obvious. So I feel pretty good about those. Um, what was the other one? Did we do classical composers?
Yes.
And this one, I think those I'm also uh,
If it were
pretty.
only the three, I would have had that on my list. It's the fourth one that throws me off,
Yeah,
for sure.
but still, uh, I think it's pretty obvious for me anyway.
Sure. That is fair. Worst snubs.
We're snubs.
My worst snub.
Let me go get my charger.
You do that. So, my worst snub is absolutely the Great Wall of China. So, allow me to take this moment to say Carlo was right and I was wrong.
Thank you.
And so this is a classic overthink. I overthought and overrationalized the Taj Mahal in. So I'm taking the Taj Mahal out, and I'm agreeing with Carlo. So now we're 4 for 4. Again, it doesn't count because time's passed and blah blah blah. But he effectively changed my mind. / upon rethinking about it, I do think the Great Wall needs to be there over the Taj Mahal because overall it just has a stronger argument. I stand by my reasoning that as far as an iconic silhouette, the Taj Mahal is much higher, but that is not enough to outdo how many other things I think the Great Wall is clearly like more known for.
Uh-huh.
So that's my worst snub, and I'll tell you what I think your worst snub is. Wolverine.
You think you know my worst snub?
Your worst snub is that you did not have Wolverine. Worst snub.
I don't think that's my worst one.
It's
I
absolutely
still
your worst snub. Actually, it must not have saved because I had a comment in here. Everybody, and by everybody I mean the two people who commented, were like, "No,
I saw that
Wolverine must be on there."
I thought,
and
I
I'm
saw
like,
that.
okay, I knew I'm not crazy here. I don't know why.
No, I'm not changing my opinion, and I'm not regretting my 4 in that one.
That's fine. You could just be stubbornly wrong. That is the only one that I am convinced you are wrong. Everyone else, like, even if besides the couple where I argue yours are not. So I was going to throw this in there too. You said Greek and Egyptian for the empires one, and I stand by they are not empires and do not count, and therefore they are bad picks. But
I would agree that with you.
If you ignore the, like, is it really an empire or not, they're at least make sense. If it was ancient cultures, then absolutely. Egyptian and Greek are probably 1 and 2 even. So I understand like where you were coming from with that, but because it was empires, that's another one. But ignoring that because it's kind of a weird getting into like what is an empire. Wolverine, man. Wolverine.
If you put him in, like, I mean, what's his deal? Is he wearing tights? Is he the mask, not the mask, the hair?
It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter whether you like him
Make
or
up
not.
your mind. Just make up your mind, Logan.
All right. So
And he smokes
what do you think?
cigars.
What do you think my worst or your worst snubs were?
He smokes cigars.
Doesn't matter. Don't do it, kids.
He's a hero. Come on.
Don't do. We don't have time to go down that rabbit hole. We're already way over time. So,
Fine.
not that there's any time limit here.
Yeah, there is. I need to go to bed because I have recording tomorrow early.
Well, within reason.
You can stay.
Yeah, stay. I just talked to myself. Yes, that sounds riveting. I'm sure all the listeners would love that.
I still haven't plugged my thing.
You should probably do that.
I should.
While you do that, you should tell us what your snubs were, or what you think your worst snub or my worst snub was.
Your worst snub. We already talked about is Kobe.
You think Kobe's my worst snub?
Well, yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize you felt that strongly about it.
Well,
so you think Kobe, me choosing
LeBron over Kobe.
Well, LeBron over Kobe, sort of. But technically, if we take your list versus mine, I chose Magic Johnson over Kobe. And I think that you can argue either direction, but it would seem odd to me for somebody to say it's a huge snub of like... It's a snub in that it's worth discussing like why I wouldn't have Kobe, because Kobe's the clear fifth one at worst, probably. But I feel like when I say worst snub, I'm saying like it is egregious or borderline offensive that somebody would not have it on their list. Like you stand by, like you
ask
think,
the people watching this if they agree with me.
Okay, so I guess here's the question. Do you think that I am straight up wrong and obviously wrong to have not had Kobe? Because if so, then that does answer the question.
If you consider that you had LeBron instead of, I would be okay with you having Magic.
Interesting.
But
it's interesting that you say that because you didn't have Magic and you do have LeBron.
Well, because things change, right?
So are you saying that you would now put Magic in over LeBron and you take LeBron out? Because that's what I was entertaining. But
well, yeah. Let me think. See, that's when it gets tricky with these things.
It really does. It really does.
But
because you have to kick somebody out to come in.
Yes.
And usually it's the fourth one. They're not ranked, but usually it's the fourth one. But sometimes it's not, because sometimes it's almost by category. So like MJ's category is, well, he's just above everybody else. But like Kareem has like all-time leading scorer, greatest center of all time, like stuff like that. But Kobe,
numbers don't really count as much when you're considering that. I mean, you take them into consideration, but
it's an asterisk at best. For sure.
All right, so then here we go. MJ, Kareem,
it's tough, man.
I don't know.
I mean, you don't have to come up with
Kobe.
Four. Just
Kobe. I would say Kobe needs to be in there.
Okay, so you think it's egregious, maybe slightly strong of a word, but you think it is a massive oversight that I did not include Kobe.
Yeah, but then I know.
I told you, I think it's egregious. It's wrong. It is factually wrong that you did not have Wolverine. So
yeah, but this is a different type of thing because we're talking about fantasy over reality.
It is. That's true. That's true. Yeah,
it's a little bit different.
Yeah, and you might not think it's that egregious. I'm trying to gauge like how egregious you think my worst
it
one was.
Is egregious that you don't have Kobe there.
I love that word. It's a great word. But
I still haven't plugged this thing.
Do you think that was a worse snub than me snubbing the Great Wall of China, or are you just mentioning that one because I already mentioned the Great Wall of China thing?
I think I see the argument for both the Taj Mahal and the Great Wall of China.
Interesting, because you were pretty strong on like no way Taj Mahal at the time. It's very interesting. All right.
Well, not I wouldn't say no way, but I can see why you chose that one. I don't think it's egregious for you to not have it.
Oh, good. Wait, so what do you think your worst snub was?
Trying to
like,
remember.
Is there a pick that you regret, that you retroactively are like, yeah, no? Or specifically something you left off that later you're like, no way, I shouldn't have done that.
All right, let me go to the list again just to have a refresher. So I'm going to say pies. What did we do with pies?
You had pecan, I had blueberry.
Yeah, no, I stand by that one.
Yeah.
Then we did Netflix.
I noticed there was a big division on pies over where you're from. So everybody I know that's like myself from like New England was very strongly for my blueberry over your pecan. And everybody from Ohio that we know, or people like the one person that was from just another random place, have all been pecan. So I find it interesting. It seems like people from where I'm from seem to think blueberry over pecan, but pecan's probably like the 5th slot. And then people in Ohio, for whatever reason, seem to think that blueberry's like 8 or something, which is odd to me because I definitely grew up with a lot more blueberry than pecan. So that was an interesting one where like the part of the country seems to heavily influence it. But
yeah. Fingers.
I don't even remember what we see. Fingers is the one that I like to pretend never happened.
Like, come on.
If I ever just delete an episode randomly that I'm like, it doesn't need to be on here anymore. It would.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me say this: the recording of the episode and the actual product that came of it was actually quite enjoyable. The subject was silly and feels like the subject that you do after your team of 30 people generating videos every day gets to in your like 30th year of running. So like it's one of those.
What
like,
else we do? Yeah,
come on.
remember we had an idea about the fingers. Let's do it now.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Yeah, it's not a good call.
Hey, it's just a matter of time. So, all right, I'm looking at the list. I don't think once I put my mind into something, the ones that I said, probably, but after that, I think I'm okay with
it.
Even
yes
with the world
and your no's be no. World empires, yeah. I said let your yeses be yes and your no's be no.
Right. Right. I already...
That's out of context.
I meant what I said, and I said what I meant.
Yeah. Yeah. Doesn't mean you can't rethink later. So, but you mentioned the empires, right?
The empires, yeah, yes.
Overall, a question that's coming up, well, right there. Mount Rushmore you want to redo. Your answer should be that one.
Yeah.
Simply from a standpoint of what opinions of mine would I want to be available on the internet forevermore. That probably is the one that you would most want to throw under the bus. Yeah.
They would be like, look at this ignorant Mexican. That's why we don't like them here.
Wow. Well, hopefully they don't say that, but yeah. So for me, it depends.
Just being truthful, there's probably people out there.
I'm sure there's people out there that think that. Yeah, it's almost like racists exist.
Yeah.
Shocker.
Yeah.
But so for me, it depends. Again, we're gonna go back to Great Wall. Like, if there's one that I would like to be able to take back as far as like what I said in the video, it would be that. But if it's literally like which one, if I had to re-record one, would I do? The answer would be sitcoms. Now, this isn't really a recording thing, but it is the only video of ours that has no B-roll stuff of any kind. It was our first video. We had not the right camera setup, which we didn't have the right camera setup the whole first season. But even ignoring that, this was the worst of them. It's the only video, or one of 2 videos, because we record 2 at a time, that were on that weird section of the couch where we had to like move our heads too much to look at each other.
Yeah.
So, and most importantly, the pictures.
The quality.
So it's literally us talking for like 20 minutes straight. I didn't cut anything. It's like a podcast, but a video of people podcasting on like
a vodka,
sitting on a couch.
It's a vodka.
Yeah, it's a video podcast by the loosest definition. So I would want to re-record that because I think sitcoms is a great subject. So at some point I would like to re-record that just for this, like, because sitcom seems like a great one for people to watch, but at the same time, like, I literally have been like afraid to post a playlist of season 1 of Mount Rushmore of Everything because I'm afraid they're gonna watch the first video and be like, this is what this is. Skipping that because I can't watch people talk with no B-roll, no pictures, no funny. Like by the end, I'm putting like little funny animations of like chat bubbles, or sorry, thinking bubbles and stuff.
Yeah.
First one, nothing. So like the difference between
Just
episode
blank.
20 and 1 is huge.
Sterile.
Yeah. So I would like to get that one back in that sense.
All right, I need an extension cord, by the way.
Oh wow.
Because
right.
I have no.
Carlo did not come prepared for this. It's almost like it's our first live stream.
I thought I would have.
No. Do the chord. Do the chord. So, this is pretty connected. Which one, the Mount Rushmore, you think the other did better? I feel like we've answered that by now, so we're gonna move on. Favorite topic. My favorite topic was either Star Wars characters, just from a like, I love Star Wars, so Star Wars characters. But Marvel villains was a blast to research. It was a perfect blend to me of like, because what I find most fun in a Mount Rushmore is when there's a couple really obvious ones and it feels like there are a bunch of very deserving ones fighting over the 3rd and 4th spot or just the 4th spot. So like, for example, if you think, oh, there's 7 that deserve a place, but I have to choose 4 and 3 of them are really obvious, but the 4th one takes you hours to figure out. But once you figure out what the 4th one is, you have enough of a logical backing that you're like, I am really confident in this 4th one, even though at first it took me a while to become confident. Those are my favorite ones to do because it's fun to research, it's fun to look into, it's fun to like think about like what really is at the heart of a Mount Rushmore of everything, like what are really the factors, how do I weigh them, all that. So in that way, World Landmarks was another one that was super fun. So those were some of my favorites. So my least favorite was actually
Which one?
Star Wars characters, Marvel villains, and World Landmarks. All of those for different reasons, but
Which question are you in?
favorite topic.
Favorite topic.
Yeah,
Star Wars for sure. I mean, it's we can talk
Shocking.
Star Wars for hours, man.
Yeah. I mean, apparently we can talk about whatever we've been talking about. Well, I guess to be fair, we are wrapping up an entire season, so the fact that this is turning into
We can talk about Mount Rushmore of Everything for hours.
Yes.
And we have the video to prove it.
Yes. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. So, yeah, and this is. I mean, honestly, we could, and you're welcome for us not doing this, by the way, but we could do like an after show for everyone and break down exactly like the thought process and argue more about the little details of every individual Mount Rushmore for probably many more hours. That's the beauty of this whole thing to us, is like, I like that in theory you can watch this and then share it with a friend and be like, what do you think? And you can get like hours of really good logical
It's
discussion.
a conversational starter.
It's a conversation starter, and it should be like a fight or argument over like fun stuff, like where people aren't really fighting and mad. It's just a really interesting thing to talk about that you can get really passionate about, right? Like you didn't realize how passionate you were that like Palpatine over Yoda or the other way around until you have to choose, right? Like it's a So I think that's part of a small part of the beauty of Mount
And the
Rushmore.
fun thing is that we were actually doing it before we decided to start recording.
Yeah.
So it is, we're really doing this because we really like to do this.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah, I came up with the concept of Mount Rushmore one day. I was talking to my friends about it like all day, and then I'm like, oh, you know who would enjoy this too? Carlo. So when I saw you, I'm like, guess what we're talking about? and then it was like you said, it was a theme for like 4
You get
weeks.
hooked.
4 weeks, just every time we saw each other, that was the like, oh, Mount Rushmore of this. But we only covered like 3 or 4 things, and then we're like, let's make videos. So no more talking about it because we want to not discuss beforehand.
Yeah.
And it's been a blast so far. So hopefully you all enjoy this, even if you have not been on this live stream for the whole time, or you're coming back to finish the live stream because you're like, oh, I thought I was signing up for half an hour, which is I was thinking an hour, but here we are. Least favorite topic for me is classical composers, which feels weird as like a music guy. Like my life, like my greatest passion in life is music and songwriting. So it feels weird to say, but it just was like 3 super obvious ones. And then for me, there was just no good way to separate, to like know who the 4th one was outside of like Vivaldi seems like the most popular name, but like with music, there's so many vague things with classical composers. Again, after those top 3, Beethoven, Bach, and Mozart are just easy. But that 4th one was such a struggle. And then even by the end, I still was like, I don't feel good about this. Like I don't think our choice of Vivaldi was wrong. I feel like it's,
Which one was our snub for that? Chopin?
That was one of them, yeah. And we weren't doing snub videos at the time, which we're going to talk about in a sec. But so I feel like all the other ones, even if I now maybe take back my pick, like Taj Mahal over, like I could argue for hours why mine is right with like a lot of reasons. Now, whether you agree with them or not is a
logical arguments.
Yeah, but like I have logical arguments, whether you like them or not, or whether you thought of a more logical argument for somebody else. Like that's fine, but like the reality is, you know, when I come to these videos, I come prepared, you know, to know what I'm talking about for it. And that's the only one that I really came in feeling like I did the research, but I still feel too ignorant to be answering this question for the 4th one. And that's why it was not my favorite.
So would you redo it then?
No, because I don't think it's a fixable thing. I just think that the 4th one, like if there's any Mount Rushmore where there isn't a correct 4 that's could be found, I feel like it's that one so far. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm thinking about it wrong, but there's just like, it's not like Vivaldi did something that clearly separates him from any of the other ones that we ended up snubbing. And it's such a far free fall after that top 3.
Yeah.
So it's a bad combo of feeling like whoever the 4th one is, they feel sort of like they don't deserve this honor to be in the group with the other. Because again, they're not ranked. Really, the whole thing is, are you in or are you not? Like that's one of the big differences between this and a top 10, which is part of why I like it so much more. Top 10 becomes sort of this thought process, an issue of, well, you know, because like for example, if I'm watching top 10 comic book villains and I see Joker's number 2, there's 2 things going through my mind. One is at that point I know what number 1 is because usually top 10s go from 10 down, and by the time you get to number 3. Usually, you know who 2 and 1 is. Why keep watching?
Oh, well,
right?
yeah.
Like,
I see what you're saying.
Like, there's no point. Like, you know Joker is going to be number 1. But if they do something egregious and make Joker number 2, now you're ticked off about, like, some little detail, which is, like, you know, you feel that, I don't know, Ra's al Ghul should have been 1 spot higher than Deathstroke. They're both on the top 10. But because you put a number on it, it becomes about where on the top 10 you are more than whether or not you made the top 10. But the Mount Rushmore, there is no ranking. And the reason we make a point of that is the honor is to be on it. It's like the Hall of Fame. The Hall of Fame for a sport, there is no you know,
Who's better?
like sometimes they say
Yeah.
first ballot Hall of Famer or whatever to make a point. Like this was such a clear Hall of Famer that the second they were eligible, people put him in. But really, at the end of the day, when you go to the Hall of Fame of any sport, it's just they're all there. You're in or you're not.
Yep.
The honors to be in it. And if you have to wait 10 years to be put in the Hall of Fame, you care during those 10 years, but once you're in the Hall of Fame, you don't care. Because it's not like on your record as a blemish that it took 10 years to put him in. Doesn't matter. Like, are you in or are you not? And that's, to me, part of the beauty of Mount Rushmore, because it takes away from, it's kind of like my GOAT thing, right? Like, my GOAT thing is you just can't. Like, stop pretending like you can absolutely say Michael Jordan is better than LeBron, or Tom Brady is better than Joe Montana, or Peyton Manning, or Aaron. I mean, you can go, I would argue for, like, football quarterbacks, you could almost go 10 deep and really not prove, because there's so many factors. Scheme, you know, how many times they had to play from behind, how good their team was, how good their coach was, how long they had the same coach. Like, so many factors. You know, how good the team did with versus without them. You know, like, that's a big part, right? Because really, at the end of the day, how good you are, the best way you can weigh that team-wise is how good was your team without you versus with you, because that's the only way you can pinpoint really how much of a difference did you make. Which to me is the only question that matters. Like, the greatest is not who happened to benefit from the best team. That's asinine. That's stupid. Then that makes the whole conversation dumb and a waste of everybody's time. Like, but so many people use it anyway. So I'm going on a tangent about GOATs now, but and my hatred for how lacking logic most people are when they talk about them, because it's always, and it's usually terrible logic, like more championships. Like, yeah, it's almost like championships, like wins, are a team stat, idiot. But anyway, sorry if I just offended you, but seriously, rethink the way that you think through these
you didn't
things.
offended me.
Well, yeah, I didn't offend you, but I know there's a lot of people out there that have extremely shallow, not well thought through group.
Oh, there you go. You offended them again.
Yeah, on there it is. Standing by it on
just call them shallow
on goats. But anyway, similar thing though. A goat becomes focusing too much on these details for, at the end of the day, making a call that, like, you can't say. I mean, like, you can pretend like there's a clear greatest basketball player of all time, like one above all the rest. You can pretend the same for quarterback or whatever. But you're wrong. There's too many factors, and nobody is so high above the other people that, like, you know, it's not like if one player had more MVPs and more championships and their team was garbage without them versus really good with that, like because I've drawn this whole thing out for quarterbacks, which is why I'm strong on the Tom Brady's not the GOAT train, but which is a thing for another time. I just triggered a whole bunch more people, but and I'm from New England. I say that just for the record. But anyway, so that's that's to me. That's to me. Yeah, that's. I am not the. There's literally a sports analyst. I won't go any further than this, but there's literally a sports analyst, like a very famous one, that calls Tom Brady, and I love this because I think it's true. And again, I do think he's top 5 for sure, and he's a great quarterback. I'm not taking that away, but he called him the LOAT, the luckiest of all time, because of his system is so easy to play, to the point that even Tom Brady himself said Aaron Rodgers in my scheme would throw for 7,000 yards a year, which is ridiculous. I mean, like, it's rare for one quarterback to throw even 5,000 in a year, for frame of reference. And he has the greatest coach of all time, and his team without him has been an 11-5 team without him. So, like, there is very good evidence that, like, in any quarterback, when he's injured or out for suspension, they look great when they play. So there's a lot of evidence that the bigger factor here, much bigger factor, is the greatest coach ever. Anyway, point being, these things are not as clear as people like to make them out to be, or like to pretend they are. And what I like about the Mount Rushmore is it takes that away a little bit, because now it's just four. You got 4, and there's no, we say non-negotiable, and we may have a number in our head, but it's not about the number. So at the end of the day, the fact that Joker was a non-negotiable versus, you know, somebody else that we agree on, like Lex Luthor, maybe not being a non-negotiable, but they're there. It doesn't matter. If you're
doesn't matter.
That's what matters.
You're in or you're not.
Yeah. All right. season 1 last words. I just want to go through some stats real quick because we talked about this. So we've thrown out there before little comments about like, oh, I think we've agreed on this many times. So I did the math. All right, so guess. In season 1, so 20 episodes, how many times do you think we only agreed on 2? And we disagreed on the other 2?
How many times?
Yep, out of 20.
Out of 20. Let me see if I can.
No. Just guess. Don't try
Let's
to math
see.
it.
I'm going to say 8.
2.
Only 2.
Only 2, which was actually lower than I thought. 8 is, I definitely didn't think 8, but only 2, only twice. World Empires.
Really?
Yep, World Empires and DC Villains are the only 2 that we had 2 out of 4. And for the record, we've never only agreed on 1 and certainly never agreed on 0. And I expect that record to last
we don't
a long
come
time.
and say, how dare you with your 4.
Yeah. So 10% of the time, only 2 out of the 20 did we get 2 out of 4. Want to guess how many times we got 3 out of 4?
8.
You like that number. 13. 65% of the time, we agree on 3 out of 4. So the majority for sure.
Majority,
65%, 13, which is good. Yeah, the 2 is the scary one. That's where you start to be like, wait a second, something went wrong here.
Right.
3 is easy to get behind. Like it makes sense to disagree on 3. 1 is where I think you really. 1 is an issue.
What is going on? Yeah.
Because it's hard to think of something where there isn't at least 2.
Yeah.
Because even percentages, like if you think, okay, if we at least agree on the top 6, your percentage of only actually picking the same 2 is very low, right? Just because probability comes in.
Little example, really quick. Mount Rushmore of hats.
Hats?
Hats.
Like style of hat?
Yeah, styles of hats. What would you put in there?
Ball cap, top hat, winter hat.
I would say, yeah. I would agree with the baseball hat.
Yeah.
I would say top hat. Yeah. Every time you throw a hat. Already. Yeah, we have 2. There you go.
Yeah.
I would say fedora.
Name-wise, maybe, but I don't know about. Interesting.
It's just a lot of people wear fedoras, and a lot of people have fedoras. And then I would say like a beanie hat. I don't know, just out of the top of my head. And again, that's a lot of the time.
So you would not have a winter hat?
Yeah, beanie hat.
Oh. Isn't beanie a certain style of that, though?
Well, I don't have one here
I feel like
right now.
Aren't those the...
But anyway,
interesting.
Besides the point,
yeah,
it's easy to agree on 2 or even 3.
For sure.
Because it makes sense. That's the whole thing with this, is that it makes sense.
Yeah. Like I've said this before, and at some point I think I'm going to put out a video on like the science behind a Mount Rushmore as far as I'm concerned. Like,
because there is science, people, behind it.
There is logic would be the better word, but they usually use the word science for that. But like I do think that there's you can't maybe put percentages on it because it changes. Like iconic is worth more in some categories than other ones. And some have like, for example, the size of an empire matters, but I don't think when it comes to African animals that like the size of the animal matters, or that whatever you would consider the equivalent of size for an empire, size for an animal, like population of an animal, like that, who cares? That doesn't matter. So everything has a different, but I do think that there's there is a correct way to think through this thing. Which if you are on the same page with that, which we are, we might weigh something a little, like I think I tend to weigh iconic a little bit more than you do. I forget what it is. I might weigh less than you. I had thought of it before, but I don't remember. So there's going to be little details like that, but those little details are only enough to make like maybe that fourth one like a little more iffy. Because for most things, there's a pretty clear. Oh, that's what I was going to say. There can be no dark horse in a Mount Rushmore of everything.
Nope.
By nature of a Mount Rushmore, you cannot have a dark horse. You could for like a top 5, in the sense that, in theory, in my opinion, when you say top 5, your implication is best 5. These are not the best 5. These are it's a combination of iconic, best, if that can be measured. A lot of these things you can't measure that. So it's a bunch of different factors, but iconic is a big part of that. So you really can't have a dark horse.
The only way you can have dark horses in Mount Rushmore is if you do a Mount Rushmore of dark horses.
Yeah, basically. that would be so weird. So if you could do the math, that leaves 5 left, or 25% of the time. We are 4 for 4, which was higher than I thought. I had thought it only happened once or twice, but 5 times out of 20, 25%
out of 20?
of the time.
Really?
4 for 4. And note that is not counting.
Oh, that's right.
That is not counting the Star Wars one that we now are 4 for 4 on, and it's not counting that I changed my mind and I now agree with your
with a
Great Wall instead of so if we include those, it becomes 7, which is
out
even
of
more
20.
impressive. But so overall, go us, season 1. I think the only thing that should give us pause is the 2 out of 4, those 2.
And again, it's not that we discuss it beforehand.
No.
We just come and cold start talking about it.
Yeah. We come up with our own logical arguments, and then we bring them together, see what happens.
Yeah.
All right. So.
But we're always, I mean, at least me, I'm always skeptical, and I'm always like, no, we're not going to agree. We're not going to agree. And
I know.
So, obviously.
Since I have season 2 preview up on the screen now that you can all see, I might as well segue into something off of what you just said. Recently, we recorded a video that shall be remain unnamed that I came into, and I said to Carlo that I would not be surprised and at all if this was, we finally broke the record and had only one that we agreed on, because there were so many fighting for those 4 spots. Like, it felt like 20 deserve it and only 4 can be picked.
Yeah.
And at that point, playing your percentages, it starts to become like, oh boy, we're in trouble. We went 4 for 4.
4 for 4.
Or at least 3 for 4. I think it was at least 3 for 4. I'm now questioning if it was 4 for 4. But I think I don't know. Regardless, you'll have to watch and see. But so yeah, it's interesting how that happens.
Yeah.
When you come together.
Because and it's not like, oh, well, we think alike a lot, that's why. It's like, no, it's not really that. It's just that the things speak for themselves.
Yeah. And I mean, when we have Sam on, we have 3 different generations represented, really.
That's right.
Because you're an older generation than I won't throw you under the bus and say your age on the interwebs.
That's fine.
I'm 27 and Sam is 14. So, like, especially for those videos, and so even with me and you, there's a big gap, or a big enough gap that, like, you can't chalk it up to, like, well, that's just, like, you both grew up in the same generation, so you think the same things. Like, no, like, you're...
Yeah, no. I mean, we're almost, 20 years apart, you and I?
Something like that. Like, you could be my father. You're closer to what my father's age would be than what my brother's age would be if I had a brother.
Yeah.
We'll put it that way. but not that I see you that way.
Good.
Yeah.
Because I do see you like my son.
Good.
Not at all, man.
Yeah. It's so this is a real side, but it's really weird when you when you start doing the math, and like the older you get, the more age doesn't matter at all. So like, for example, let's go with the 20-year thing. You at 26, there's no way you would be friends with a 6-year-old, right? Like that's at best creepy, right? Like that's not a thing. But then like somewhere around like 22, 23, it all goes out the window. It doesn't matter. All of a sudden, like outside of like, you're probably not going to be friends with people who are literally your parents' age, but pretty close.
Oh yeah, when you get to my age,
go out the window.
When you get to my age, you go and talk to anyone and start a conversation. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Friend is sort of a different thing though, which is a whole nother discussion we could dive into, because I have very strong feelings on the definitions of friendship. In case you haven't noticed, I have strong opinions about a lot of things, and I have thought through a lot of things that probably aren't worth the time of day to overthink, but I love that stuff. I could just argue technicalities all day.
If you ask anything to Joseph and you start texting, don't be surprised if he sends you a full-on essay.
Yeah, so
you don't receive a text or a long text. You receive a link to the document when he answers your question.
So a little backstory on this. Carlo was asking me a question about a certain thing that's not really important, but basically I realized after sending him 4 long texts that to answer his question effectively in a way that I felt good about, I needed to write it in something too long to be justified with a text, and I don't like sending like 10 texts in a row. I don't even like the whole like sending.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna write a document up, and it turned into 11 pages.
And 2
more pages for another
2 or 3 extra after the fact.
Yes, which those I wrote in literally like 10 minutes. The first one took a little longer for sure, although it was pretty stream of consciousness. But
you're sick, man.
I have strong thoughts of feelings that I enjoy discussing, to the point that I am very willing to sacrifice my own time to help people if it's a thing that interests me when it comes to talking about stuff. But anyway, so season 2. Couple changes are coming for season 2. One is we did away with the multicam. And there's several reasons for that. One, you probably noticed that there were several times that it looked like I was looking at what I seemed to be like. I was looking at something that you would think, oh, so is he looking at the camera? But he's clearly not looking at the camera. That's because we had 3 cameras set up, and sometimes we had a camera die because they're all different types of iPhones was what they were, with very different levels of camera quality, if you didn't notice. So we had 3 very different camera qualities, and sometimes one would die on us, and some other times it wasn't like, you know, the camera quality on a certain camera was so bad for that take that I just threw it out and was like, I can't use this. So it turned into a mess of like, sometimes there's that awkward, we're looking at what seems to be what we think is a camera, and that's because it was, but it didn't end up making the final cut, or it made the final cut only at certain times. Like there are some where like I look at a certain camera the whole time, and the only time you actually see me from that camera is when I give my monologue at the beginning or the end of the video. That's because the camera quality was so bad, or a couple of them, somebody who I will not throw under the bus was physically holding the camera, and it was so shaky that I almost got a headache just looking at it. So I'm like, well, that's unusable, so I throw that out. So there were just a bunch of problems with that, and we also realized that the quality of the end product video, like the multicam, especially once we started adding pictures and all that other stuff, and I started cutting more, and really trying to get the videos down to 10 to 15 minutes and not have tangents left in there and stuff like that. Once I started doing that, the point of the multicam kind of went away, because the whole point was to sort of change up the image, you know, make it a little next
It didn't
level,
really add much to it anyways,
considering the work and the fallbacks. Yes.
Yeah, and then to get them out of each device and consolidate them, it was just a pain.
Yeah, and so if you're thinking, oh, so you just are trying to save time, that's a factor, that is a factor because I would rather deliver more quality videos to you guys and get better and better at editing rather than wasting my time on multicam, because that's an hour that I, then don't have for editing. So that is a part of the reason, but the real reason for me was not motivated by not wanting to do that work anymore, as much as I do like getting it as efficient as possible. Really, the main factor was that I want the videos to look as good as possible.
Yeah.
And the best way for us to do that is to just use the best iPhone camera. So for the second season, we're only using Carlo's iPhone, which had the best camera of the iPhones. Makes it a lot easier. It will be consistent. You won't get the weird, because we'll only have one camera to look at. So when we look at the camera, it will be the right one. So there will be none of that weird stuff left. So it will make the viewing experience much better, I think, as well. That was sort of the main motivation there.
Right. And it's still, I think, so you're using it to make it more professional, and it ended up not being that.
Yes.
I think when you just use the camera, it actually looks more professional.
Yes. I agree completely. Yeah. In theory, the multicam makes it more professional. Someday, if we have, you need to have a camera director, and we have 3 legitimate cameras, and we're not using iPhones
and
anymore, a switcher and stuff, then we'd love to move back to that, because we do want to try to squeeze as much quality as we can from our limited resources. Because right now we're just two guys that want to do this because we think it's cool, fun, and we think that it can be a small part of making the world a better place via interesting discussions that aren't, something horrible like, politics and religion and getting into bad subjects that make fights at your family gatherings. Instead, you can say, oh, what's interesting? I watched a video the other week where they talked about DC villains. What do you think's on the Mount Rushmore? And you can have a great, interesting conversation and be passionate about it without fighting. Because let's be honest, as passionate as you are, you're probably not going to have a fist fight over Yoda versus Palpatine, right?
Yeah, and you also can come up with your own Mount Rushmore ideas.
Yeah,
I mean, you can share it with us also, and we can make videos about it and put them out there.
For sure, we'd love you to do that. Actually, drop them in the comments below. So
the preview.
Yeah. So wait. So the what?
The preview.
Preview. Oh,
well, didn't you say it?
Well, season 2 preview, as in we're talking about it. We're previewing it, talking, not.
Oh, okay. I thought that we were gonna watch it.
Oh no! That would be awesome.
I have something I can show them to you, to everyone here.
How?
I have them recorded. I have the footage.
Oh.
I'll just give you a snippet here, people.
That would. Can you play it in a way that would look
for you guys?
I feel like that's counterproductive. Or they could just watch it next Thursday when it comes out.
Yeah. Anyway.
So the big new thing that's coming is we now, because we realized a part of what took up time in the first videos that you may or may not care about was often we'd do 1 through 3, the picks, and those would go kind of fast. And then before and then after pick 4, we'd sort of discuss, here are the other ones we considered. And I always felt that it was a weird combo of, on one side, I'm like, oh my goodness, we've been recording for 30 minutes at this point. We need to wrap up this video. But at the same time, I felt that talking about why we didn't pick other things and getting into a little bit more of the nuances of those little subtleties that make the difference between making the Mount Rushmore and being that 5th or 6th, somewhere in their range, is a very interesting discussion that it felt like we didn't have time for in the first one, because I really don't want the videos to be 30 minutes, 20 minutes. I really wanted to get them down to 10, 15 minutes, which is a good bite on YouTube. It's the common YouTube length that most people like and expect from a YouTube video. People don't come to YouTube to watch 2-hour-long videos usually. But, So, but I thought the
Like these,
snubs.
you mean?
Yeah, but snubs is a really interesting discussion. So we decided that we were going to separate that out into a separate video. So we're going to actually spend even less time in the main video talking to the point that, like, I refuse to even say why I didn't include some things in the first one, because that is like, so the first one is all about here's what I have for the Mount Rushmore and why this deserves to be there.
Yeah.
And then we talk about the subtleties of the other ones that could have been in there, why we didn't choose them, and then what I find is sometimes the most fun question to answer. We answer, what would it have to do to get on the Mount Rushmore? So, like, for example, if you think Palpatine's not on the Mount Rushmore, what is it he'd have to do to get on the Mount Rushmore? My answer would probably be, to get on there, he would have to be main villain again, which he was for 9. Now he's the overarching villain of basically all of Star Wars.
All of it, yeah.
So that, like, elevates him, whereas if Palpatine wasn't in the sequel trilogy, then maybe we're still sticking with Yoda. I don't know. So, like, that's sort of an example just off the top of my head of, like, some of the interesting, like, what needs to happen to get there. Because some of these are fluid, right? Like, Iron Man might obviously be on the Marvel one today, but in 30 years, that might not be true. So getting into, like, future-proofing and sort of saying, here's what can happen in the future to change this. Now, some of them, like Empires, it's already done. But you can still say, here's what it could have done. Or here's a little different alternate history where this would make it. So there's always a way to answer that question. So we think it's really interesting. I've had a blast recording them. I know Carlo has too. Right?
Of sorts, yes.
Of sorts.
You could say that.
What a resounding. Now everybody's like, well, I guess I'm not watching that. But
no, it's been fun.
Yeah, sometimes I enjoy talking the snubs even more than the actual video, if I'm being honest. Just because it's just a very different nature discussion.
Yeah,
and it gets a little more casual. So yeah, it's just a little more I don't know. It's different. So let us know how you guys like it. They'll be out on Mondays so Thursday is still Mount Rushmore episodes every week.
Yeah.
So now it's going to be 2 videos a week, because the following Monday after the Thursday is when the snubs video will come out. That way, you get a little amount of time to think through what you saw on the Mount Rushmore video, maybe think through, what you think the snubs were and why we didn't have them on, why you would have them on, sort of start gathering those thoughts. And then on Monday, we'll drop the video to show you what our sort of behind the scenes thoughts were and what we thought we snubbed and why and what they could do to get on there. So let us know if you enjoy them. Do that by liking those videos, dropping comments. If you think that there's something we can do, like another interesting question, like the whole what would it have to do to get on the Mount Rushmore? If you think there's another compelling question like that, let us know, because we want to make the videos better and better. So we are super open to any suggestions that you may have. But we're having fun doing it. We already have 10 episodes of the next season and the next season's snubs videos recorded. So it's already half done as far as recording. I am not that far ahead on editing, though. I know, right? It's weird to think we're halfway done with recording, which I only have edited. I'm only like a week ahead right now, which is slightly concerning because I was up to 4 weeks ahead, but I was working on my songwriter theory stuff a lot. But anyway, so hopefully you all enjoy that. That's new. You're now going to get double the content from us, and I also think the content quality of everything is going to go up from splitting that out. So I'm really excited about it. And as far as subjects, we have 2 mini-series that we're going to have this season. Ancient gods, so like Egyptian gods and Greek gods, is going to be a little mini-series. I think it's going to be 3 episodes. And then an NFL mini-series, which will probably be coming out around the time of the beginning of the NFL season. Perfect timing for it. And then we have some other interesting episodes, Nickelodeon shows, ice cream flavors, dog breeds, African animals, Roman emperors, and all sorts of other cool stuff. So we hope that you will join us for
exciting
season 2.
Stuff. We're going to laugh. We might cry.
We might
fight.
Yes. I definitely had 2 of my hotter takes / more shocking snubs. I say shocking because I stand by them. I wouldn't call them egregious. But if you come into the video, when I snub the thing, you will probably be ticked. When you hear my reasoning in the snubs video, you might come back down to earth and be like, well, okay, it makes sense at least.
Okay, I'll forgive you.
Yeah, but at first, you're probably going to be ticked. So I'm excited for you guys to see that, because I certainly didn't do the hot takes on purpose. That's not my goal. My goal is to find the truth, because I have a conviction that there's a true answer to all this, and I want to find it.
That's right.
And Carlo feels the same way, which is why he is the partner in crime for doing this fun journey with me, which we have a blast.
Find the truth, and the truth will set you free.
Yes, of course. So, with that said, here's our first live stream. How exciting was that?
Well, we are what now? Close to 3 hours?
Yep. I think what I'm going to do is I might
chop it off,
pull down the video, chop it up into segments that people might care about, and then put those up. Not that I don't think that this was a very worthwhile 3 hours to listen to, and I'll leave it up with the 3 hours. Just listening as a podcast, half an hour at a time or whatever, I feel like for the most part we talked about interesting stuff. But I also recognize that most people don't want to watch a movie for 3 hours, much less straight up watch two guys talk for 3 hours.
Very few movies have been able to pull that off.
Yes, exactly. And I don't think that we are greater than those movies.
We're looking at you, Peter Jackson.
Yeah. So, yeah, this has been fun.
Fun.
And for any of you that are left, for any of you watching later in the history of Mount Rushmore of Everything, thank you for watching. Thank you for watching this whole season. This past season has been a blast. Starting to record this next season has been a blast. It feels so good that every week I feel like we get better at doing it.
Yeah, we know what we're doing better, I guess.
Yeah, we know what we're doing a little bit better. I know what I'm doing with editing a little bit better. And you guys seem more excited with every coming video. Shout out to David Yoder, who the other day I saw shared on Facebook, and I didn't ask for that or anything, but as a creator, as somebody who does songwriting and stuff, when you have a friend that randomly wasn't even a day that your video posted, they just go out of their way to be like, you know what, go check out what these guys are doing because it's pretty cool.
Thank you.
That's awesome. It made my day for sure, and it's brought a smile to my face many times over the past week. And I know it's a small thing, but it means a lot to us, and we want to make sure that you guys know that you are appreciated, because you are appreciated. Every comment you drop, every single like that you drop, all of you who have subscribed, those of you who will subscribe, any of you that share it via text to a friend, whatever you have done, even if you just gave us the time of day to watch 5 minutes of our video once, we appreciate all of you.
Yeah, it's fun to share this with you guys.
Yeah, and the whole point here is discussion. So I hope that you take this stuff and discuss with your friends, you discuss with your relatives, you discuss with your significant others, and then you discuss with us by dropping a comment, right? Keep the conversation going. I would love to at some point have an audience where we can live stream every week for just 15 minutes.
That's not going to happen.
Even if even if every week I make myself available for 15 minutes, just people comment and we have a discussion, that would be awesome as a very future thing. But the point is that this is all about discussion, and that's the heart of it. So discuss it with other people, and you don't even have to be like, hey, this is from a YouTube video, go check them out. Just have the discussion, because it is a lot of fun, and it's a much more healthy discussion than talking about politics or any of those other really fun subjects that we just all love and are pleasant experiences to talk about all the time. So with that said, thank you all. Thank you, Carlo, for giving up 3 hours, it turns out, of your Friday night as well.
Thanks to my kids also, and my wife.
Yes,
and
thank you to my wife for sure. Yeah,
I'm going downstairs to watch The Dark Knight with Sam. He's waiting for me.
Wow, that's first of all, you're going to bed real late then.
Yeah.
Which is
Thank you, Joseph.
Yeah, you're welcome. Which is kind of like my style late. I've been going to bed at like 3 lately, but yeah, no, that's a good thing to go do. I'm excited for you because great movie.
All right.